Hello, YouTube. How are y'all doing? Happy Friday. We got a special one today. We've got our friend Ken from over at Ken's Death Metal Crypt. We got our friend Aaron from the Metal Theologian channel. And, of course, my intrepid sidekick, Alan.
I'm upgraded to sidekick this week.
Right-hand man.
I'm no longer a lackey.
Right-hand man. We're here to talk about maybe one of the oldest metal genres that there is. New wave of British heavy metal. This is a genre that I am certainly not as well versed in as these fine gentlemen around me here are. So that's why they're here. But we are going to get going on that. And how are you guys all doing today?
Doing great.
Who are you calling a gentleman?
Are you the gentleman stunt double?
I'm wonderful, Marty.
Would you
How
like
are
some
you?
Grey Poupon with that record?
We're all like Grey Poupon.
God
damn it.
It's been
Here we
a
go.
busy day, but doing good.
Manservant Hecubus.
I'm working my way up to that. I have to log in at least 2 more Friday nights, I think, to get to manservant.
Yeah, we got you booked in here. In 2 weeks, you're going to be manservant level.
There we go.
But we might as well start off with a little discussion. I guess what makes new wave of British heavy metal distinct as a genre? Who would like to start?
I don't know that it is distinct as a genre, really.
Why not?
I mean, it's not because all that you're really talking about is a certain period. I mean, part of this is like record dealer hype, right? But that's just a fact of life. I mean, if it weren't for record dealer hype, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation in the first place. But like when you're talking about that genre, all you're really talking about is anything that came out of the UK between like 79 and 83 that was sufficiently heavy, like to the standard of whoever the speaker is. You know what I mean? So like we might argue over a band like, you know, Praying Mantis, but fundamentally, yeah, you know.
Well, I mean, I think as humans, we're all prone to try to put things into a classification, just for our own.
I just know that Def Leppard and Venom have very much in common, you know.
Well, that's another question for later, actually. But what do you think, Ken?
Yeah. So as far as I think Aaron does touch on a pretty good point, because of its existence only being in a very short period of time. Is it considered an actual genre or a subgenre of metal? I don't know. However, I do know that it, you know, my opinion of it is that it revolutionized, you know, a genre. Now, whether there, it could be a debate that did new wave of British heavy metal become heavy metal? You know, did it evolve into heavy metal? And if the answer to that is yes, then it is most certainly a distinguishable genre. I mean, you know, during that time that Aaron pointed out, 79 to 83, you know, the world had more musical genres at their fingertips than ever before. Soft rock, hard rock, R&B, soul. They had so many genres of music at their fingertips. And then lo and behold, during that time, these bands from England decided to take the hard rock scene to just a little bit heavier and more aggressive of a place, and it revolutionized what we know as heavy metal today.
Yeah, actually, the real answer too, if I can jump back in for a second too, and sort of to build on what you were just saying, I think is that you know, we can say here's where the question's kind of dumb, but the fact is there is a sound associated with it, and it's that sort of like I hate to give the credit to punk rock because I kind of hate it when people like. You know, and you're like, well, metal's awesome. You're like, oh, well, punk really should get all the points, you know, and people do that. But sort of a punk rock, sort of like working class aesthetic that hadn't really been there before. I mean, not that like, you know, Black Sabbath was like blue-blooded or anything like that. But I don't think that prior to the new wave of British heavy metal era that there was that sort of aesthetic in that kind of music. Of you know, down to the basics, stripped down, wearing your street clothes, you know, just playing your instruments and not sort of necessarily having all the showmanship and the pomp and the gimmicks. You know what I mean?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And that's, and in a way, if we're going to like talk about sort of the contribution of that, or make the argument for new wave of British heavy metal as a genre, you know what I mean? If I want to argue that that's a genre, I would say that that genre injected that aesthetic into heavy music, and in doing so, really kind of laid the foundation for everything that came after.
And I
Until
like
you
the
got
punk,
back into the glam as a reaction back against it, but you know.
and I like the punk point. No pun intended. Wow, that's a lot of P's. But I like the punk point. However, I'm also going to say that rock and roll, man, played a huge part. You know, rock and roll played a huge part in, you know, everything from Elvis to Little Richard to, you know, played a huge, if you listen deeply to new wave of British heavy metal, especially that stuff that came out in, you know, like 79 and 80, I mean, there is a lot big rock and roll influence in that stuff.
Oh, absolutely. And it all evolved from the blues.
Hey, throw some examples at me, actually. What exactly are you thinking of? I know what I'm thinking of, but I want to know what you're thinking of when you say that, because I wonder if you're hearing it in places where I haven't heard it before.
You're talking to me?
So, yeah. Give me a few examples of ones that are like rock and roll that really make you think of like Little Richard or something like that. I want to know who you're thinking.
Like Faithful Breath. You listen to like a Faithful Breath, like Rock Lions. You listen to that, the guitar work, that rock and roll, and you just hear that really rock and roll kind of like, it almost, there's a couple of riffs in there that almost kind of at least take me back, what I'm hearing, to almost like a 1955, you know, Elvis rock and roll kind of a thing going on there. So something like Rock Lions from Faithful Breath kind of does it for me. You know, maybe even a band like Gaskin, End of the World, you know, kind of
I'll
gives me
listen to that record again. I haven't heard that in a long time, but I'm going to make a note of that Faithful Breath because I actually don't have Rock Lions.
Oh, that's a great rock and roll record.
Yeah, you know, that's one of the few bands that I think like was around for a long time and got better over the course of it, because my favorite record of theirs is probably Skull.
Yeah, that's
my least favorite is probably that prog record. I mean, which really is kind of just a bad prog record. But listen, I don't mean to change the subject completely to Faithful Breath.
No, and I'm sorry too, but you know what, Aaron, what we just talked about, though, we're talking about new wave of British heavy metal. I just brought up a band that's not even British, which is
okay.
Faithful Breath. They're from Germany though.
Well, I had a white throat.
And that probably could have been a question: is what band do you like the most? A new wave of British heavy metal band that is not from Britain.
Well, I think that circles back to the question actually nicely, Ken, because you know, like Aaron said, I agree with Aaron. New wave of British heavy metal as a genre it's not a genre in the normal sense, that you can't say that it has distinct musical qualities you check off. I think of new wave of British heavy metal, yeah, it's a time and a place. It's a temporal spatial term. New wave of British heavy metal bands, as we're going to talk about, a lot of them sound very different from one another. To me, the best comparison is Christian metal. Christian metal isn't a particular style of music. It's just heavy metal that has lyrics about Jesus. And that can include everything from Striper to Mortification, which sound nothing alike.
Yeah.
But at the same time, yeah, there is a core sound that a lot of new wave of British heavy metal bands did kind of, you know, work around. And it's what Aaron described. This kind of blue collar, you know, 4/4, you know, time signature, you know, basic song structures. There are, you know, very certain riff, you know, patterns and intro lead sections that you hear variations on from lots of new wave of British heavy metal bands. But yeah, then bands from other places build on that too. And Faithful Breath's a great example of that, you know, that sound is emulated by bands from other places too. So yeah, I never like it when people try to use it as trying to describe a sound, because it's not a real genre the way you might consider thrash or death or punk or something. But yeah, there are core elements that a lot of the bands had in common, but there's a wide range around that sound that we'll get into.
For me, I mean, Alan and I touched on this when we first did our dual power metal discussion a long time ago. We talked about these early bands and the new wave of British heavy metal bands, you know, 79 to 80, whatever. They were starting something, in my mind, something new, for the fact that, you know, like nowadays, there's a whole entire genre of bands that were inspired by Left Hand Path. There's a whole genre of bands inspired by Keeper of the Seven Keys or Walls of Jericho. These early bands they were influenced by rock and roll, like Ken mentioned, very much. And they had they took what they were feeling from Chuck Berry records and they turned up that distortion, they turned up that volume, they presented it a different way. Is it the birth of heavy metal? I think it is. And I think that, I mean, you look at like Possessed coined the term death metal, Venom coined the term black metal, Steppenwolf coined the term heavy metal, whether it was not a conscious decision, it was just part of a song lyric, but people grabbed onto that and used it to define what was happening with this faster, louder music that was coming out of that rock and roll framework. For me, this is early enough where I really think that a lot of this is the building blocks of what heavy metal as a whole started to build on. And though it isn't at the focal point of my listening career, of my listening, whatever, I recognize there's bands that I love in it, but I recognize the significance and the importance of it. And I think a lot of people, the bands they listen to now, they pay a lot of tribute to that, whether they know they're doing it or not. And I think it should be praised as the birth of heavy metal in a lot of ways.
So then you would agree that it is distinctive as genre?
Yeah, I do. I think it does. And I think like they were influenced from rock and roll, and this is what came out of it. Was it an immediate? I mean, those super early records, they sound like metal? Maybe not, but the writing's on the wall, you know?
Absolutely.
Oh, next, this kind of flows into it. The new wave of British heavy metal. These days, I mean, bands get started by, you know, they put out a demo. They write songs for a demo. They do a lot of things to build up to work on a full length. But it seems to me like the new wave of British heavy metal is unique in the fact that some of these bands put out a song. They put out a song for a compilation, or they put out 2 songs on a 45. I mean, why are bands like this, why do you feel they're so influential to this day with a band that had such a small imprint on the wider heavy metal genre as a whole?
I think it's for exactly the reasons you just said, that they were taking the limits of rock and roll and hard rock from the 70s. I mean, you know, hard rock was, you know, the thing in the was obviously a big thing in the 70s, you know. Disco had died by 75, I believe, right?
Yeah.
You know, we were left with hard rock. So, I mean, I think they were, for exactly that reason, they were taking the boundaries of what was known as hard rock and roll, hard rock, and making it one more step extreme. And, you know, being that it came out of the, you know, the trenches of England, it was, you know, it was known as the new wave.
So
heavy metal.
You would say that even though a band may have only put out 1 song on a compilation, just the fact that they did it and have that footprint on a bigger release, you know, a lot of these other bands, they moved on to put on albums, they evolved, their sound changed. You know, when a band starts out, they're really not, they haven't arrived at what they're going to be yet, you know.
Absolutely.
And a lot of these bands, they flickered out before they could even be given that chance.
Sure, but because of that extremity, because they, like you said, they touched that one song, that one note, that it only takes one good riff in a song for you to remember it, to remember that song, and then remembering that song, you're going to remember that album, you're going to remember that band. So my opinion is that's exactly how they kept that one track. If it had that right riff in it, people remembered that band, remembered that track, remembered that Dragon Slayer was on that one comp.
Yeah. Anybody else have any input on that? Any thoughts?
Aaron?
I don't know. I'm sort of of 2 minds about this, you know what I mean? Because on the one hand, I want to be realistic about like how influential a band that did 1 song on a comp really is. You know what I mean? On the other hand, you know, basically, I don't know that you really said it explicitly, Marty, but I think the implication is pretty clear that most of these guys never went anywhere, you know? And so there's a part of me that wants to say, you know, let's be honest. The only ones who were like really like big were like, you know, Iron Maiden, right?
Yep.
On the other hand, I think, and the rest of it, you know, I would chalk it up into record dealer hype, you know, which again is not something I resent. But on the other hand, if I turn this around, it would still have been record dealer hype back then too, back like when Lars was fucking buying these 45s. Because he really was doing that shit then, you know? And even though I didn't like to admit it, you know, when I was down on, you know, him for all the right reasons for a lot of years, the fact is that little fucker has a big mouth. And if you're like listening for new shit and you've already established that he has pretty good taste, then, you know, a comp like that one comes out, the one that I think probably started all of us off on this shit, that New Wave of British Heavy Metal revisited, 79 revisited, whatever it was called, the Lars comp, you know?
It is.
Yeah, that's it.
Yep.
Thunderstick.
So the point is, though, if you have one song on a comp, off a comp, that it makes an impression, like what Ken was saying, and that person becomes like the guy from Metallica, well, then maybe it did have that big an influence. Because even taking out of it how big Metallica got, you know, Lars had a big mouth, right? And he was hanging around with the other metal bands at the time, you know what I mean? So I guarantee you that all the fucking guys from Exodus and Anthrax and whoever else all heard these records too, because fucking Lars wouldn't stop talking about it. You know, and that's all it takes. You know what I mean? So a couple of those guys hear the shit too, and all of a sudden you have a record that literally only 10 people have ever heard, but becomes hugely influential because 6 of those guys started major bands. And I'm exaggerating a little bit to make the point.
Yeah.
But.
Well, yeah, it's a good point. It's like the, you know, Sex Pistols show in, you know, Birmingham in, you know, 76. There were only like 50 people that attended, but all 50 of them went and started a band the next week. And, you know, 24 of those bands became, you know, hugely influential in their own, you know, styles.
Yep.
Yeah,
You know,
I mean, this is really the Velvet Underground story, right? I mean, that's what you said about the Velvet.
Yeah. I think something else to remember with that, Marty, is that a lot of those new wave of British heavy metal bands were very popular and were very successful at the time. Sometimes we all are bad to focus on the obscure stuff in new wave of British heavy metal. We're very bad to kind of gravitate towards those bands that, yeah, had one song on one comp that, you know, had 50 copies pressed in a, you know, basement on, you know, some kind of, you know, Thames dockside, you know, bar or something. But you had a lot of new wave of British heavy metal bands that were on major labels like MCA. It wasn't just a, you know, cult underground thing. Yeah, you had bands, you know, that's, you know, you had big label support for bands like Saxon and Maiden and Tigers of Pantang and Girls School. Bronze, you know, had Motorhead and Girls School. You know, so the scene had a lot of very highly visible bands that, you know, toured the world at the time. They were selling hundreds of thousands of units. So, you know, yeah, those are the bands, you know, obviously that would have had more impact. I think, you know, sometimes these smaller bands get name dropped more often because, you know, we all joke about it, but there is that little bit of, you know, true metal street cred and, you know, who can pull the most obscure reference out of their ass to, you know, throw into their liner notes to try to, you know, one up everybody else. Now, sure, some of those small bands are fantastic, and they would have had their impacts, you know, along the way.
I wonder
it's not just that it was a bunch of demo level bands that went nowhere that somehow had this big impact. It was a bunch of little bands, but built around, you know, these big, you know, centerpiece bands that were on EMI and, you know, these other big labels making it successful. So in a way, you had, you know, some bands showing that, hey, you really can become, you know, rock stars doing this kind of thing.
Right.
And you had all these small bands that were just like, yeah, doing that blue collar vibe of saying, hey, I can do that too. Punk has kind of shown us that we can have this do-it-yourself attitude. And if we're not on a big label yet, fuck it. We'll put the record out by ourselves. We'll organize our own gigs. We'll make our own flyers.
We'll be called.
And maybe we'll get there too, just like Iron Maiden or Motorhead or Judas Priest or someone.
And
I wonder how many of those bands were like really big in the pub scene too.
There was I mean, those
You
bands,
know.
a lot of those bands played their asses off, you know, in
Exactly.
local places. They were local heroes in whatever, you know, in Southeast London or, you know, in Southern England. You had, you know, a very active touring scene, you know, there for an underground circuit of bands. You know,
They did
were
that
out there.
Yorkshire scene for many, many years, man.
Yeah, the Midland
Yorkshire
scene
tour.
Yeah, the
30-year
Midland scene was famous for having, you know, kind of the heavier biker element, whereas, you know, the London scene had more of the, you know, the straightforward, you know, heavy metal sounding stuff, so on and so forth. So yeah, I mean, those bands were out there and active at the time, within the boundaries of the UK, and some of them spilled over to mainland Europe at times. But yeah, there were a lot of big name bands that we shouldn't forget that had success, and some of them had very long running success to this day.
Plus, you got to keep in mind that 1979, it was still very much 45. Putting out a 45 was a big fucking deal. Now, I mean, people can listen to your shit endlessly on the internet, but it was 45s were the lay of the land back then, and they probably got distributed around quite enthusiastically, I would imagine.
For sure.
But,
what a glorious time that would have been.
Yeah, crazy.
To have been part of that.
Well, how would certain bands like Venom and Def Leppard, how do they fit into the new wave of British heavy metal tag, even though they sound completely different from most bands that came from that era? Although Def Leppard was kind of, they were kind of the typical sound, I guess, but Venom certainly was not. I think, what was it, Angel Dust was the first song they released on a new wave of British heavy metal comp, and that sounded nothing like anything else on that comp.
Yep. But yeah,
I think Venom's a very tough. That's a tough. Venom can fit in a lot of places, and maybe they're not. Because we could talk about new wave of British heavy metal like we are right now, and mention Venom. We could be talking about black metal and mention Venom. We could talk about the D-beat punk sound and mention Venom.
Oh yeah.
I think Venom can be placed in lots of these subgenres of metal and fit in nicely. Are they genre defining? I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't go as far to say that they are genre defining. Are they one of the top 5 or 10 bands that molded the genre? Maybe not. But are they definitely a band that should be mentioned when talking about any of those genres? Absolutely.
Sure.
So that's why
when it comes to the new wave of British heavy metal, honestly, I don't really, and I haven't filed there too. Okay, just being honest, but I don't think Venom is really one of those bands. They were there chronologically. I mean, they weren't from that far away from Def Leppard. They're both. I mean, they weren't like from the same. Venom was from Newcastle and Def Leppard was from Sheffield, if I remember correctly. So they're both in the north. You know what I mean? They probably saw each other at shows and that sort of thing. But Venom just doesn't sound like those other bands, and neither does Witchfinder General. You know what I mean? So like, here's the experiment. All right, since I have my 45s right here and didn't pull any out ahead of time, just pulling some out randomly. Which ones have kind of that like more like sort of barroom type of feel as opposed to that sort of like big sound that like Venom was going for, or like the really stylized like doom sound that like a Witchfinder General was going for. Okay, we've got the Frenzy record here. That's definitely kind of barroomy shit.
Mm-hmm.
Fugitive, totally barroomy type shit.
Yep.
I mean, this is actually too easy because like I'm looking, okay, Getty's Axe, Goldsmith, Hammerhead. I mean, Jesus, fucking Handsome Beasts, Hellenbach, every one of these, High Trees and Hollow Ground. This is probably the least like sort of barroomy of the lot, but they'd still sound pretty damn good in a medium-sized pub. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if we're going to talk, so this is, I'm kind of going back around again, but this is like the argument in favor of new wave of British heavy metal as a genre. You know what I mean? I think it's easy to throw it around and cast this wide net where you're really just talking about this period of time. But, here's another one, man, Holocaust. I mean, these guys were like a barroom sort of band, if anyone ever was. You know what I mean?
I have that EP.
These are so great.
Rules.
Yeah. But then this, on this record, yeah, they still fit in. But even by the time of this one, and this is a reissue, so but by the time of Purgatory, they were really kind of already playing in a different league,
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I mean, it does rotate around. You're right, Marty. They're very different, but yeah, again, you've got bands playing very different styles at that time that do get lumped in. Venom wasn't the only band playing kind of this more outrageous, over-the-top style. Robespierre was a small
That is a
band at the
good
time.
fucking record.
That is
Yeah.
a
Sorry,
good record.
go ahead.
Is that
Anyone watching this who doesn't know Robespierre, that fucking thing is great, and you should all go out and buy it right now. Okay,
is
proceed.
that
Sorry.
the Buried Between Time and Dust one?
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got that too. That record is solid.
Yeah, it is. And, no, they don't sound exactly like Venom, but they're definitely going for that heavier, rumblier, really over the top song. I mean, they've got songs like, I Am a Cannibal, and it's, really crazy, tongue in cheek, over the top, like Venom. You've got bands that leaned a lot more punky, like Mayhem. So, Ken, we did get some Norwegian black metal in here, as we were talking about beforehand.
I don't know that
yeah,
one. I've never seen that one before.
This band is
I've never seen that either.
This band leans, they did I think they did a couple of records. They lean a lot more punky. There's a very strong punk vibe to them, but they still were, part of that new wave of British metal scene. Aaron, you mentioned Witchfinder General, had a much doomier sound than most bands.
I love that record, but it doesn't sound like Jaguar.
Power Games.
This album, has power, speed, and thrash all have their roots in bands like this and Sweet Savage.
I love that album.
So yeah, you're right, Aaron. You can pull a ton of records, and one I always grab for just if you want that quintessential new wave of British heavy metal sound is something like Wolf. This is straight up that kind of pub sound,
and it really is a quintessential sound.
Yeah, blue collar sound. But all these other sounds are things too that are part of. We're still part of that scene. They were in the same place at the same time, with different sounds, but yeah, they can be all lumped under that new wave of British heavy metal umbrella without sounding identical to each other. Which is one thing too. Some people, I think sometimes get down on new wave of British heavy metal, thinking that, oh shit, it's all these bands that sound like Praying Mantis and over and over and over again. And there's a lot of those, but there's also a lot of other bands that have very distinct sounds. So it's not a group of people should not write off new wave of British heavy metal only because they've heard, a couple of records by Limelight or Saxon, and it was, a little too tame for them. There's a lot of different flavors of new wave of British heavy metal for folks to check out.
Bruce, Samson and Bruce.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking, that's solid shit. Sorry, solid.
So I guess this brings us to how did you each get into new wave of British heavy metal? I guess we'll start with Ken since he's the new guy.
So I wish I could tell you some epic story, of how I got into new wave of British heavy metal. But obviously, like Aaron has pointed out, it was 79 to 83 was its, when it was at its best. So I was but a mere child during that time. I was born in 1970. So in 1979, I was 8 or 9 years old. I had no idea what music was just yet. So I didn't get into it until a little bit later on in life. I was actually exposed to it around 1983. But at the time I was exposed to it, I didn't know that it was new wave of British heavy metal. I just thought it was heavy metal. So not until very late 80s, I met a friend who explained to me that some of these bands I was listening to was new wave of British heavy metal. So I started understanding that some of the stuff I was listening to was classified as new wave of British heavy metal. And then probably in the mid to late 90s, I really got into new wave of British heavy metal, and of course started back cataloging all those records from 79 to 83. And with the help of a good friend, Jeff Gruslin, who used to be the ex-singer of Vital Remains, in the mid to late 90s, he was a vinyl guy and used to distribute vinyl. He used to buy up people's vinyl record collections. And then he was a very good friend of mine. He'd contact me just about every week and just say, hey, I got a ton of new wave of British heavy metal. And if it was labeled as new wave of British heavy metal, I just bought it. So, and then throughout the years during those times, if I was at local record stores or something, if it was on a particular label, like Mausoleum, especially, Bronze, Guardian, something like that, it pretty much is going to buy it. So as long as, but that was my venture into new wave of British heavy metal, and it's been downhill ever since. But my first new wave of British heavy metal record back in 1983, a friend of mine from school's sister had this, and I bought it just because we thought she was the coolest person on planet Earth, and she had it, and I wanted it. So I was like in 8th grade, and I had a pocket full of paper out money, and I bought Iron Maiden Killers just because this guy was on it here.
Well, talk about they got it right early on. I mean, Iron Maiden knew how to brand their. I mean, even if you didn't know what the hell this was sitting on a record shelf, you're like,
I didn't.
I'm buying that fucking thing.
Exactly. That's exactly what it was for me. I had no idea what it was. Zero idea. I just knew it was heavy metal. My friends, he used to come to school and bring like the cassettes from his sister. I think he owned one or two, but it was mostly his sister's. And much to her dismay, he would bring the cassettes to school and he would let me look at the Eddie pictures. I had no idea this Iron Maiden, like, what does that mean? Like, what is that? And had no idea what any of this was. And then when I was at a record store with family and I saw, like, you know, at the store mall, and there was Record Towns and, you know, the like in all these department stores and malls, I saw this. I'm like, that's the record John showed me from his sister. And I no idea what I was buying. And I bought that first record as New Wave. Again, not knowing that's what it was at the time I bought it. But if I'm going to be honest, that was the first New Wave of British heavy metal record I ever bought.
So it wasn't the gross porno mag in the woods you kept going back to. It was the Eddie pictures.
That was it. That was it. It was strictly Eddie. It was purely Eddie.
The truth of the metalhead truths come out.
That's it.
How about you, Aaron?
Well, it's funny because I mean, I got into that Iron Maiden stuff back then too. You know, I mean, I probably told this story before, but I mean, what really sort of, I was really, if we're going to go back that far, it was really part of my first sort of real, like, deep exposure to metal where I kind of blew my mind. And that was when I first moved to Germany in '83. And just on like regular TV, there was this live in Dortmund, like festival where there was like a whole bunch of like no shit metal bands. This is like with no commercials in there too, like except between sets. And it's all on YouTube now, so you can check it out. But it was like Judas Priest and Scorpions and Ozzy Osbourne and Iron Maiden and a few others. I'm pretty sure like Quiet Riot and MSG maybe or something like that. But that was the first. But I saw this on TV, and this was the first time I heard Iron Maiden, and it just blew my mind. You know what I mean? So sort of my experience.
You saw that reel on the TV?
Yeah.
Oh,
like I didn't know it was going to be on. I was like, oh, this is some music thing. I'm interested in that. I love music because, you know, I just like, I was already spending all my money like on tapes and shit. You know what I mean? But I had like my, yeah, I had like, you know, my ZZ Top, and I had a copy of Pyromania. In fact, I would have tried to go see them on that tour if we got into Germany about 3 weeks earlier. They actually played in the town of Erlangen, which is where I was. Wow. So I got there and there were still posters up like in the subways. I was like, shit, we missed them, you know?
Just grabbed one.
In a parallel universe, that was the first show I ever went to. But yeah, but anyways, yeah, so that shit blew my mind, right? And so I got a copy of I ended up getting a copy of Peace of Mind on tape, but like still being kind of intimidated by it while I was playing it and shit, just having my mind completely blown by it. But that was kind of a different thing. That was like me getting into metal, you know what I mean? The first thing that I think that I really bought, because it was this new wave of British heavy metal thing, and I was looking for that sort of specific deal, was probably after I'd like taken that comp in and digested it, you know what I mean? And the first ones that I remember hunting down were like probably the Parallax, but then since I have it here, actually this one was kind of one of the first ones, this Hollow Ground 45.
Nice one.
And it's really because, you know, I had been able to turn most of the other ones up that were on that fucking Lars comp. You know, I had even gotten Rock Snacks by the time I got this, but that's over with DLDs.
Is that
you know?
Guardian Records and Tapes?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great label. I love that label.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of quality.
Yeah, it's a weird label.
I don't have this.
And I don't have the original cover. This was, I mean, at least I assume this is a copy. It was sold to me as a copy. It's a really good copy, but. Yeah, so if you want the Rio Flex, we have to go to Alan with that one. But that was that was like one of my first forays into like, I'm like collecting this shit now. You know what I mean? This is like beyond, I found a copy of the Witchfind LP and knew to pick it up because I had heard that comp, you know? I think I paid, actually I got that at Aquarius Records. It's kind of a famous shop in San Francisco, but I think I paid $4 for that.
So that TV show ruined your life.
You know, I couldn't really even jokingly say that, given how much like enjoyment I've gotten out of this shit over the years. You know,
Me too.
It was funny. Like when I watched that, like I didn't like Judas Priest at all. you know? I was like, that just sounds like shit to me, you know, but I loved Iron Maiden. I didn't really get into Judas Priest until I was in my 30s either.
Well,
I was super late with
the Maiden or Priest. When I was young, you couldn't have both. I was a Maiden guy. I
was a Maiden guy too. Maybe that's why I've always gotten along.
I started getting into Priest and thinking, what the fuck was I thinking? This shit's great.
Yeah, dude, 100%.
Yeah. How about you, Alan?
For me, it was that loudmouth Lars talking about this thing. I very much remember I would have been a senior in high school, if my memory serves right. And my dad always got this old music publication called Goldmine Magazine. It was one of these big oversized things printed on newsprint. It was like a weekly publication, I think. And he had a subscription to it for decades. And, you know, I would always kind of flip through it a little bit just out of curiosity because I knew a lot of, you know, his music, and sometimes I would have stuff on newer music. It was mostly dedicated towards like record collectors for golden oldie stuff. But, you know, they did have, you know, one issue that winter came out, you know, and it had a little cover blurb about, you know, Lars Ulrich, Metallica, talks about his new compilation project or something. And so I was like, oh, hey, I'll definitely check that out. You know, I was, you know, very much into metal stuff by that time. And so, yeah, they had this little, you know, 1-page interview thing with Lars, basically, yeah, just, you know, hyping this release. And, you know, they had a picture of the cover, which, you know, really captured the imagination. And it just really clicked with me. Just like, holy shit, there's this whole scene of bands from, you know, the UK that apparently had a big influence on all these, you know, bands like Metallica that I like. And I've never heard of any of them. I've never heard of anybody talk about any of them. I've got to dive into that. That just sounds really interesting. So,
hey, you know something though, man? If I can interrupt you for just 1 second on that count though, like taking a step back, like as like someone who would want to put something together to turn people onto this kind of music. One of the reasons I think that package is really kind of ingenious is because it's not completely strange. Like a lot of the names on that thing, like Iron Maiden, I already knew. You know what I mean?
Yep.
This is like earlier, okay? By the time I saw that, I actually knew some of these bands. But like pretending I'm just like Joe Blow. Iron Maiden, I already know. I definitely know Def Leppard. Oh, wow, they did some cool shit early on. Well, I guess maybe Pyromania wasn't that bad. So maybe there's some great shit buried there. And then other names like Venom that I've probably heard, but maybe don't know what they sound like. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So from that standpoint,
exactly right.
It does exactly what you said, as far as like being a bunch of new stuff, but it's not so strange that like there's nothing to draw you in. It's not as intimidating because it has some more obvious stuff. So just since we're talking about this compilation, like as a record reviewer, that's something I really kind of give it credit for as far as as far as putting itself in a position to popularize the music.
Yeah, that's a great point, Aaron. It's not just obscurities. Yeah, you've got Raven on here. I remember when, you know, the next time we went to the big city, you know, fingers crossed, like, I hope Camelot has a copy of that thing. I hope they have a copy of that thing. And they did. It was a cassette copy, and I bought it. You know, I immediately started playing it in the car ride back home. But yeah, you know, there were band names I recognized. You're right. I was like, oh yeah, Raven. I've heard of this band, but I hadn't.
I didn't know they were this cool.
Yeah. You know, Venom's like, okay, I've heard of Venom record. Okay, cool. More Venom material. That's good. So yeah, it clicked, you know, it helped. Like the liner notes were really nice and detailed. They told you where every song had come from, in terms of whether it was on an album or an EP or a compilation. It was almost like having a built-in want list printed right there in the thing for you. You didn't, and again, this was 92. You couldn't have tracked that information down very easily. But you didn't have to. They put it all right there for you. It's like, if you like this, here's where it came from. Go check
it's like a record collector put it together, except that he made a couple mistakes in there that seemed like a record collector would make them.
Yeah, but yeah, so this was very much where I started. I mean, right away, you know, I just, you know, started digesting this, you know, over and over and over again. And, you know, I think I ended up buying at least one record by probably every band on this eventually. Maybe there's somebody on here that I decided I didn't like enough to track down, but yeah, this became the want list. You know, quickly.
You guys think Lars has a huge record collection?
Probably not anymore.
I hope he still does, dude. You know, it's like when I saw him in that fucking the really depressing Metallica documentary that I can't remember the name of it. He was bragging
about some kind of monster.
Yeah. Like when he was bragging about his art collection, I was like, dude, I hope he didn't lose your soul.
Oh, that was the greatest movie I've ever seen in my life. What a bunch of billionaire crybaby. Come on. It's got to be so terrible being a millionaire rock star, you guys.
So anyway, I hope Lars still has a really good record collection.
I hope
on
he
that
does
note,
too. I really do.
because there's still someone in there. Then
I don't know if Lars does. I know famously, of course, Brian Slagel, who was big buddies with him back then. So Brian still has his record collection, and he's for decades had reportedly like the best or one of the two best new wave of British heavy metal collections in the world. He has every fucking little EP and single or comp that you can name. So I bet Brian still has it, even if Lars maybe Lars gave it all to Brian. Who knows? He traded it to him for a Van Gogh.
Well, for me, it's Iron Maiden. I didn't know that this was new wave of British heavy metal. I was born in 1971. I discovered Kiss via the TV in 1977.
Yep.
And just went nuts. I could have all the Kiss I could, and from there it went to Dio and Sabbath and Ozzy, and of course, and I think a friend had this, and this is my first album by them, and this is my favorite Iron Maiden album. This is a perfect album as far as I'm concerned, and I love the Deano years. I think he just had a brawler style to his vocals, a punk, certainly a punk feel to it, but this album to me is perfect, and just the way Steve and Dave and Adrian all wrote this music is just mind-blowing to me, and it stands the test of time. I mean, obviously this band went on to afford themselves an amazingly long career, and they have influenced a million bands, and that, to me, that's what makes it all just heavy metal, But Iron Maiden, for me, they set in full motion. They just had class. They had a lot of brains behind their compositions. The musicianship was amazing. And it's the founding, the cornerstone of what heavy metal became. And that band, I think, Ken, you've mentioned on one of your shows before that they're your favorite band. And they're probably one of my favorite bands as well. I mean, anybody that's a long-term metal fan probably can say the same thing. It's just it's one of the bands, it's a legacy band that's been the longest in anyone's collection. They're albums that people just aren't going to get rid of if you know what's good. And I can listen to the first two Iron Maiden records and be transported to a younger, better time every single time. And the music still holds up. It doesn't sound dated. I mean, it just sounds like Iron Maiden. It doesn't make me think of 1979. It makes me think of Iron Maiden. It makes me think of heavy metal. It doesn't need to necessarily, if it's good, it doesn't need to evolve. But
so in sports, there's a player on a team, and there are sometimes players that are born that make everyone else around them play better. Mm-hmm. Like Michael Jordan, he was one of those players that made everyone else around him just play better when he was on the floor, when he was on the court, right? And Iron Maiden was that for heavy metal. They just made other bands want to be like them and aspire to be. They were inspiring, and they made other bands play better, in my opinion.
They made other bands play. They like you said, they inspired so many people to put a band together to try to
they're a benchmark
style of music.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I guess this brings us into, I mean, we could talk about what was your first album, but I mean, ultimately, I think we're all going to probably show some stuff that probably that first album is going to come up anyway. So we might as well start with Ken. Let's start showing some records.
Just show records. All right.
We're going to rotate. Show one, and then we'll go to the next.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll show a few, and then I'll give somebody else. Well, I did have one pull, but
there you go.
Alan beat me to it. Some of the more we'll talk about. Now we talked about this band already, but this record? It's rock and roll.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is a rock and roll record. I mean, I still got the lyric sheet with it, and it's this.
That's awesome.
And I even got still the Raven.
Oh, cool.
T-shirt offer for £3. You could have got a Raven shirt.
It's all about Hell Patrol for me, man.
Yeah, man. This thing, this is such a good, and it's autographed. Wow, the original numbers. But anyway, so it's just a rock and roll record. What a good rock and roll. But some of the more Some records that I just felt never got a little. I'll give some props for stuff that just never got attention. Incubus to the Devil a Daughter. Now that's
a cool album.
This is hard rock, new wave of British heavy metal at its finest. This is just. You guys want to talk about, like, you know, they got this pentagram thing going, like Venom, the satanic imagery to the Devil a Daughter. You see the devil up here. Sorry. I mean, but new wave of British heavy metal hard rock right here, man. That's
Hey, what's the best song on that record?
The best song for me?
Because I've always thought that record was lame, honestly.
Really?
I've tried. I want to love that record because, I mean, look at that fucking cover. I mean, I want to love that record, but I've never gotten it. I'm going to try that. I want a song to start with.
Highway to Hell is pretty good, too.
Yeah, anything on side A, especially.
Highway to Hell is on side A.
Yeah, side A, Aaron, I think, is the big side for me.
You guys remember Dark Star?
All right, I'm going to pull that out again and we're done here because, that one took me a while, too, actually. That's a cool record, but I didn't like it right away.
I'll be honest with you. I didn't either. I didn't like this greatly when I first put it on either. It's an acquired taste, and it took quite a few spins for me to warm up to this record. And now I put it on earlier, like probably 2 weeks ago, and it's like totally resonated with me. It took a while. It's an acquired taste, but yeah.
Lady of Mars is such a cool song on that album. It's so catchy.
Okay, now here's
it was too catchy for me before I got into it. It was almost too AOR-y. Now I listen to it and I'm like, what was I fucking saying? This isn't AOR, But at the time, I don't know, man. I think that's just the taste acquisition, like Ken was saying.
You talked about Faithful Breath Rock Lions.
Oh, yeah.
I'm telling you, this is rock and roll. It's not from the UK, but rock and roll. That was new with British heavy metal. Okay, now here's a UK band. What do we know about this band? This is the only record this band ever put out. It was Lou Taylor, who was one of the vocalists for the band Satan. Left Satan, got replaced by Brian Ross, who sang on Courtney Act. Awesome new wave British heavy metal record. But Lou Taylor met up with Kevin Hayborn. Who's Kevin Hayborn from?
Angel Witch.
Angel Witch. And those two got together, and they did a 2-song demo in 1984. Those 2 songs, one of the songs being one of my favorite Angel Witch songs, Evil Games, the child's Evil Game. And then they did this album. So then they split after that demo. Hayborn went to Angel Witch, took Evil Game song with him, and I think the other song, which I think, what was that second song on it? Nowhere to Run or something like that. But he took that song with him. But the band still remained intact and did one record, and it's this record. And this record absolutely fucking rules. Is Blind Fury, Out of Reach. This record is so good. It's got so many good keyboard infused hard rock in this. Oh my God, is this good? So
that's
Blind
what I've
Fury,
always wanted
man.
to hear and have not gotten. I've never tracked that one down.
This thing is insanely good, just so good. But yeah, and then they disbanded, and then Taylor went back to Satan and replaced Brian Ross. But anyways, those are a few. I got more, but I don't want to take the whole
We'll circle the wagon.
That's
back.
okay. Go ahead. Well, I don't know. I'm not moderating. Never mind. Holy shit. Wait, what's this? I'm up.
You're up. You're big.
All right. I'll just.
Good.
I mean, shit. God, here. This is a good one. This is right there. We were talking about the album. I think this is right here is the best Jaguar. If someone says, I don't know how much this thing costs anymore, so I shouldn't. But there was a time when you had said, if I have $30, what's the best? Is this Jaguar LP worth getting? I would have said, you know something, just get the fucking 45 and you'll be doing just fine.
Yeah.
So, and specifically this one, Backstreet Woman is good. I'm not going to shit on it. I mean, I have it right here, although not with the sleeve like Alan probably does.
Yeah.
And,
I have it.
Yeah, actually, I think the LP kind of sucks, honestly. But this 45 is fucking fantastic.
The second LP sucks.
The first one just sounds anemic to me. You know that that live record that came out on, I think it was Buried by Time and Dust that put it out, Russ?
Yeah.
You know Jaguar Live, like Live in Holland or something it's called, something like that. The same songs that I think are lame on the album, when they're playing them live, sound great.
Great. Yep.
It's like the album, just something about it. It just feels kind of like there's a weight on top of it or something. It doesn't really, Anyway, I don't mean to shit on that record. That's not the point. I'm just saying that's a great fucking record.
Yeah.
Someone was talking about Jameson Raid too. This is a really kind of on the punky side one, but It's a Crime is one of my favorite songs from the era on GBH Records.
Yeah, Jameson Raid is they always had kind of a quirky sound. They were definitely a little outside the box.
The accents are a lot heavier than most bands.
Yeah. Which is unusual because a lot of British bands really lose the accent when they're singing. Yeah. And those guys really actually almost turn it up.
It's like it's amplified, yeah.
I can't comment, by the way, but for some reason I can't comment. But somebody saying Quartz is pretty cool too.
Yeah.
I think some of Quartz was really good.
Window to comment on I can comment because I'm the moderator, but you'd have to open up your own YouTube channel, mute it, and then you can comment on the chat, Ken.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, and Aaron, just FYI, those Jaguar singles run about $75 and up now a piece.
All right.
I saw them. If you go with like Discogs or something, you can't get them for under 75 anymore.
You couldn't have mine for less than 75. That's for sure. But mine's also not for sale. Yeah. So this is another like great one right here.
2 thumbs up.
Yeah, JJ's Powerhouse on Silly Simon. It's kind of a dumb name, and fucking the B side. Running for the Line is the A side. The B side is Black Rods. I have a thing for unintentionally gay sounding names.
Crushing song, yeah. That dude was the guitarist did a single in a band called White Heat that's also pretty good. It's not that good.
I've never heard that one. I've heard of it, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's not as good as the JJ's Powerhouse, but it's in the same ballpark at least.
Yeah. So anyway, I've shown a few. I mean, I can keep going, but I don't want to bogart the time.
We'll move Alan into the limelight here.
Okay. Let's see. I want to show, or at least for starters here, a few that are, again, better known quantities, but things that shouldn't get overlooked. One that we've chatted about on email a little bit back and forth all week. Girls' School.
My copy of that did show up today, actually.
There you go. Good man.
I almost brought it up earlier, but I was like, no, that's a little bit too self-indulgent. But that was actually the last thing from that comp that I didn't have, that Lars comp. So
okay,
it's complete now.
Early Girls' School is so good. It's got so almost it's got a little bit of a punk structure. It's very Motorhead influenced, but good vocals, huge catchy songs and choruses that will just get stuck in your head so well. Yeah, and again, this is the kind of band people today might overlook because it's one of those bands that's a little too well known. It's not obscure enough. No, don't overlook it. It is a classic album. Great stuff. Absolutely. Another one that I'm guilty. I haven't played this album in ages and should have. Tigers of Pantang, especially the first album, Wildcat. This one is really cool. It's got a nice raw sound to it, kind of dirty sounding with Jess Cox on vocals. Great stuff. Out after this, they got a different vocalist who's a lot cleaner sounding. His name was Deverell, but and they're good albums. But they sound a lot more cleaned up than this first one. Really,
they don't really sound like new wave British heavy metal albums to me. The other ones, not like the first one.
Yeah. They.
I mean, they're also late for it, but
they lose a little bit of that edge to them.
Yeah, Spellbound sounds nothing like that.
I wouldn't even say edge though. It's like at least the second one still sounded plenty heavy. There was just something different about the feel. I don't know if it was in the production or what it was. And I'm not the expert here anyway on this band. I'm kind of late to them too. But
the two albums that define kind of the top of the genre for me would be these two. Angel Witch we've already talked about a little bit. It's hugely influential. The band, sounded incredible on this, and the Diamond Head, Lightning to the Nations. If Diamond Head doesn't release that album, Lars Ulrich doesn't follow them around on tour for a while in the early 80s. If Lars Ulrich doesn't follow Diamond Head around on tour for a little bit, he doesn't learn a lot about the business. He doesn't go back to California and get serious about a band, and you change the entire course of heavy metal without Diamond Head. So, Diamond Head, they got on MCA. They did a couple albums, but they didn't really find much success. They kind of lost the spark early on. But yeah, I mean, there's a good example going back to one of your earlier questions, Marty, about, here was a band that they got past the demo stage, didn't, become like, a big, rock star success. But without Diamond Head, there's a parallel universe, like Aaron said, the same universe where Aaron sees Def Leppard in Germany. Metallica doesn't exist. Metallica never even gets onto Metal Massacre Volume 1. They never leave the bedroom. And from there on, the timeline goes, batshit crazy because everything disappears. What does that timeline look like without? What does the heavy metal timeline of the last 4 years look like without Metallica? Well, this is a big part of why that band was able to find success. So that's my first batch of things to like show off and definitely mention. They're better known albums. These are not big obscure things. Don't overlook things just because they're a known quantity that everybody's heard of. They're a reason everybody's heard of them is because they're some of the best albums from that time period.
Yeah. Well, I'm certainly not going to be showing batches of stuff. I just picked a handful of things. None of these are rare or hard to find. But like I was mentioning earlier with the whole Maiden thing, growing up, it was either Maiden or Priest, and I was a Maiden guy. Didn't like Priest. Didn't care about Priest. But it's been the last 20 years that I've realized that I'm an idiot and have been going back and getting all the old stuff. And out of all the Priest albums, this is probably my favorite, Sin After Sin. I'm not saying I dislike the other albums. I love Stained Class. I love Defenders, Screaming for Vengeance, all of it. It's all good. I even like Turbo now, and Ram It Down.
Turbo's a good record.
But it's, they're trying to do it. Maiden did the guitar synth thing on Somewhere in Time.
Somewhere in Time, yeah.
And Priest mimicked it with Turbo, but they were a lot less subtle about it. But this album, to me, I love a bluesy singing Rob Halford. He's really super bluesy and crooning on this album, and he has a beautiful fucking voice. He didn't really step into that metal god persona until, an album or two later on with the, those searing highs. But, Black Rose of Summer, it's the ballad on here, but holy shit, he sings his ass off on that fucking song.
Do you have Sad Wings of Destiny?
Yeah. I was going to grab that one too, but this is my Last Rose of Summer. I say Black Rose, I meant Last Rose of Summer. But Priest, to me, they're quintessential new wave of British heavy metal band. They're just about as old as Maiden. They've had just as long a career as Maiden, and they put out some amazing shit. And yeah, I love the metal stuff, Painkiller. All that crap is great, but bluesy Halford is where it's at for me. The vocals on this are great.
That's a very overlooked album. I think it's sandwiched between two albums that have such a huge legacy that people forget about that one.
Yeah.
That's probably true.
Let's get back to Ken. Let's see some other stuff, Ken.
Oh, I thought you were going to show more.
No, like I said, I've got a small, tiny baby stack here.
All right, well, you guys showed some 7 inches. So 7 inches, 45s, I should say. They weren't called 7 inches, right?
Right.
Let's not forget Blitzkrieg.
Oh, yeah.
Buried Alive. Love this 7. Love this EP. Got it years after it was released. But somebody mentioned Quartz. Street Fighting Lady. Good stuff. It's not, I wouldn't call them top tier, but it's a good listen.
Mm-hmm.
You can find it for $1 or $2. You guys remember Demon Pact, Eaten Alive?
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. And that's another one that almost sounds like they don't belong in the genre, I think, because they sound so distinctive.
Yeah.
But the thing is, they do have, but the shit that I was calling genre defining before, as far as that sound, like the pub sound and sort of the dirt and grime about it, they have so much of that, you can't leave them out.
They nailed it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're one of my very favorites. I fucking love that band so much.
If I can jump in for just a second, Ken, about Demon Pact, one quick funny story. I had that single back when I was in college, and for a while. I had my records in my graduate student office because I was there so much. It made more sense to just move the record player into the office. And I remember one day, that's
why we're friends, dude.
That's kind of depressing, actually.
But one day, my master's thesis advisor, had come by, just to check in, see how I was doing and stuff. And I had that Demon Pact single sitting there on the corner of my desk, and he's walking by it, hey Alan, how you doing? He just kind of looks down and goes ooh, Demon Pact, and just looks up and continues the conversation nothing's happened. It's just this little moment frozen in my mind that he's just you got this little guy, this little skinny Texan guy in a giant hat walking in to talk vertebrate paleontology, and he just literally is ooh, Demon Pact, and then just doesn't even break stride. Keeps going.
Do you think he knew? Do you think he knew who it was?
I don't think he had a clue, but he looked at, I mean, it's very eye catching. Even this guy who had no interest in it and wasn't there to talk about it, he glanced at it for 2 seconds. It was still like, ooh, Demon Pact.
It just looked cool.
It looked cool enough. He couldn't help but comment on it.
Yeah, turntablist, totally. 100%. It looks like they traced it. Yeah, hold that shit up again for a sec, would you, Ken?
The Demon Pact?
Yeah, hold that up for a sec so people can see. Okay, so they had the monster manual, right? And they opened it to the succubus. Then they traced it, like with tracing paper.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And then, like, somehow they figured out a way to, like, copy that onto a regular paper and made their cover. And in the process of doing that, they made it look even shittier than it did originally.
and I mean, those guys mean business. I mean,
so Aaron, you're saying they critically failed their charisma check?
For the winning my heart charisma check, dude, they had already rolled an 18, like in the concept.
You mentioned Diamond Head.
Oh yeah,
Diamond Lights. What a great live album that is.
Their early stuff is just so good.
Here's one. You guys remember Blade Runner?
I have never heard now. I've not heard that one, I don't think. It's another one I've always seen on lists but never got.
On Ebony is this is good. People, if you're watching and you want to get into new wave British heavy metal, get this record. Get that record. That is a monster record. All right, I'll show like one more here. Well, I got some Angel Witch, Gaskin. Here's one. These guys mean all business, man. Look at this guy. Look at this guy over here with the glasses. It looks like Napoleon Dynamite. China freaking white. China white, man. This is
I don't have that one. Is that good?
This is good. This is such good rock, hard rock, new wave of British heavy metal. It's very rooted in the hard rock 70s sound for sure. Mm-hmm. But look, it's called Run for Cover. Look at the cover. I don't get it.
Dude, that cover is a total 10 out of 10.
I mean, this dude is running away from the chick, right? I guess he's running for cover. But why wouldn't you want to get arrested by that chick? I mean, I don't get the cover.
Is that a fucking gorilla behind him holding the gun?
I think it's just another like guy that's with her, like with a gun. I don't know. This is like the weirdest cover I've ever seen.
There's a story behind that cover. There's a story behind that cover. I would give $1 to know the story there.
I mean, it's no sword and sword. I'm used to stuff like this.
That's pretty good though, too, dude. But it's not quite as special.
New wave. Now that's new wave, but that's sword and sorcery, there, my friends. I mean, and the kid, I kid you not, these guys weren't fucking around. I mean, look at that guy's afro. I mean, he was not screwing around.
That dude on the cover
were being serious.
To a Man of War cover. He just wanted to slay that dragon on the way.
Well, Man of War is one of the greatest bands of all time. That's all we're going to say about that. So.
All right, I'm not going to disagree, really.
I know you won't. That's why I said that.
All right, Aaron, what you got?
Yeah. I hadn't really thought about it, but I think that, like, my infatuation with anything, like, cheap and second rate in metal kind of came about as a side effect of my getting into the new wave British heavy metal shit, because
that's fucking brilliant.
I didn't want to pay for like a lot of the sleeves, so I don't have some of the shit like Alan. But like, okay, so this is from a cheapness and weirdness standpoint, this works on a totally different level. But how many records do you have where the fucking drummer is on the cover?
Good point.
The band is only
look at that
drummer. After all,
that's unique. That's the only and it's the only thing on Legend Records, as far as I know, too. I think they might have been affiliated with someone. But now there's a great new wave 45. But in the days of YouTube, you can look that up yourself. He didn't even tell you about the music. Actually, I'm just kind of kidding. This is fucking awesome. It's super hooky. Like if you like good songs, like good melodies, this fucking record delivers.
That's
and actually, they're also from Kent. Yeah. They're called Legend. Actually, they're one of many bands called Legend.
Yeah, that's not the Legend that did the 2 LPs, though, right? That's the
there have been half a dozen bands called Legend.
Yeah,
they're from England.
They're from Kent. Yeah, right. It was and as far all they ever did, as far as I know, is this 45 and a song on Kent Rocks, and actually that song was on the 45 anyway. So this is pretty much it.
Okay, and it's the EP's Hideaway. Sorry, writing this down because I got.
Yeah, but let me try and find another cheap looking one.
Yeah.
No, that's brilliant though. That his lust for like second tier, second hand heavy metal got him into new wave.
Yeah, but yeah, just for anyone in the chat, that's not the same legend that did like the Death in the Nursery album. That's relatively well known. That is a different band altogether.
Oh, this isn't really shitty enough to put that back. Okay, you know something? This is a great one, and y'all probably have this one too. But how shitty is this cover?
Oh, Sledgehammer! I have the
Sledgehammer.
album. I have the album.
I had the album years ago. I don't have it anymore.
I've kind of come to the conclusion that these guys really only did one good song, but that song is so good that people like us are willing to sit through the whole album for the one song. Because even this fucking 45, I don't even remember what the B-side is, but it's really kind of crap. Oh yeah, Feel Good. Look how cheap this is though too, man. Look at that. That's just fucking gold, you know? It's like they cut out a picture.
4 days of fucking Photoshop.
That dude, he's the best guitar player he knows.
Yeah. He's the best guitar player in his high school. Although he does look a little older than that. I love this label too, actually. Let me show this. This isn't quite so much from the cheapness standpoint, but just for being weird. You know, it's private, but like fucking Valiant Records with that old like pugilist on it. That's fucking just brimming over with charm. Isn't it? Hey, and speaking of classic ones, I mean, look at how shitty this looks.
Oh, I've seen that. What is that?
That's the fucking first Tigers of Pan Tank 45.
Oh, that's
These are neat.
Okay, I've seen that. Yeah.
But it was like, yeah, I mean, I think whoever drew that was friends with the band. Who fucking did do this anyway? Maybe it's credit. You know, just fucking as big a band as they kind of became, though. You know, I mean, they actually made a few bucks off their records. That was kind of their humble beginnings, man. You gotta love that shit.
All right, Alan, we'll slide you in next here.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
We're doing. Let's see. I've seen at least one of these mentioned in the chat, so we'll get it up here on the screen. These are some 7 inches that came out pretty early, and although the bands didn't necessarily have a huge amount of success, they became very well known in the scene again. So these are some of the smaller bands that did have an influence and an impact. Mithra. They did the one EP that came out in late '79 and got reissued in 1980 and sold incredibly well at the time, for a small independent release single. So this is one that they steal pretty unabashedly from Budgie's Bread Fan a little bit, but then Metallica steals bits and pieces from Mithra for later stuff. So yeah, cool one. First on Guardian. This is a later press on Street Beat. Another one of these early bands that you just did some cool stuff was Triarchy. This was the first version of their single. This was on the little SRT record label, which had a long history in UK going back to like the early 70s with a lot of those early, heavy proto metal bands back then. They did 2 singles. We talked to, I think it was Matt several Fridays ago, Marty, about bands that, or other things that had where roots of metal went from. He mentioned Robert Johnson, and one of the songs on the other Triarchy single is a Robert Johnson cover of Hellhound on My Trail. And Ken mentioned this one in passing, but another one on Guardian early on, the first Satan single, Kiss of Death. Yep, is an original. And this early Satan stuff is so good. They did. They recorded 4 songs for Guardian. 2 of them got on this single, and 2 of them were put on the Roxcalibur compilation. And all 4 of them are just killer tracks. I like the Guardian session actually more than the Court and the Act recordings they did later with Brian Ross.
Court and the Act is such a good fucking record.
I always have some trouble with that album. There's a lot of good songs on it. I hate the production on the album, and I hate the track list because it's got 2 instrumentals back to back in the middle of the album.
It does.
Just really kills the momentum of the album. But it has a lot of good stuff on it. It's better than I give it credit for sometimes, I'll admit. But
yeah, I think that's one of the best records ever right there, though. Like, bar none, just absolutely 100%. That Satan single is one of the greatest records.
I got the repress of it. I don't have an original.
And I think it's hilarious. There's another one in South Carolina.
But yeah, this is kind of showing that right there, like we've alluded to a few times, 1979, into 1980, is when this scene really got cemented, and even the smaller bands were releasing quality stuff that was getting attention in the UK music press. It was they were staying on those indie charts and getting write-ups and playing shows and getting favorable reviews, so that these bands, they weren't going overlooked. They were getting their moment in the sun, even though they didn't necessarily last very long. So there's a batch we can reset back to the top of the key and throw it over to Ken. Or no,
Marty.
sorry, Marty. Marty gets a shot in here.
Well, I'm going to jump in on Saxon, but my
Absolutely.
Saxon appreciation really doesn't start until the band started adopting more of a very mild European power metal mix into their sound. And these 3 albums are great. This one being my favorite.
No shit.
Oh yeah, I love this record. This one is very much has a power metal feel to it, Lionheart and Inner Sanctum. But this takes the good things of early Saxon and gives it more of a modern metal sheen, I guess. The songs are just super well written. They're heavy, well done. Biff's vocals are great. And I realize this band's place in the genre, but for me, it's their later era albums, and even their later one, Thunder Steel or something, is really, I haven't got it yet, but I will get it eventually. This is a great record, really, really good, really catchy, really heavy, memorable, a lot of emotion in it. Great, versatile band, and you can kind of see why they've stood the test of time, because they've been able to, they had a hair metal minute there, and they had some other
Rock the Nations.
Yeah, they had some hair.
That's a good record.
Dalliances here and there, but they've tried to keep relevant, and good band. But those 3 records,
I like Rock the Nations.
check them out.
Yeah. Saxon's one of those bands, again, that some people I think they overlook because they've been around for so long. You see their records all the time. It's very easy just to kind of develop a blind spot to Saxon, and you shouldn't. So they did a lot of good stuff. Their first several albums are really are another great example, Aaron, of that kind of core new wave of British heavy metal sound.
Yeah,
that so many bands try to emulate, because Saxon did well at the time. They were on Carry Records.
Carrere, the French label. Yeah, same as Demon in them too, right?
Yeah. I mean, they were they were making money off those records at the time.
I was never a Demon fan.
Demon has some very good songs. Demon has some very good songs, but yeah, there you go, Ken. Absolutely.
That's my favorite Saxon. That's my favorite Saxon. Some lesser known bands, probably. This band is not. I don't think they're lesser known. I think a lot of people know them now. I think when this record came out, I don't think a lot of people dove into them. But if we're going to talk about new wave British heavy metal, Savage, Loose and Lethal.
That's a good album. I've heard that.
That's become a staple over time. Yep.
Exactly. I don't think anybody really, again, on Ebony Records, but I don't think anybody gave a shit about this band when this record got released, or even 10 years later. Yeah. For some reason, this gained like a cult status, this record, like about 15, 20 years ago, for some odd reason. I didn't get, but I'd like it to. Yeah.
I think that one just got it, but Ebony put out so much stuff so fast that sounded very similar. I think Savage just kind of got lost in the crowd on their own record label, which was kind of sad.
And then some other lesser known bands like Chassar, Gypsy Roller.
Oh, okay. I've never heard that one.
I've never heard that one either.
It's good. It's very keyboard, little proggy for new wave British heavy metal, but definitely rooted in the keyboard hard rock scene for sure. And I'm sure you guys remember another, probably, I think this just got, maybe about 3 years ago, this got repressed on CD, but you guys remember Ace Lane, See You in Heaven?
When it comes to covers, I actually bought that one just because of the cover exclusive.
Oh, it's awful.
No, it's
I mean, come on, these guys. I'm telling you guys, these guys weren't fucking around. I mean, these guys really thought they were the next Iron Maiden. I mean,
okay, band meeting. The cover artwork for your album has been presented, and you're like, oh, God.
And somebody was sitting around the table and said, "Fuck yeah, man!
That's it. We all agree,
it, dudes." We're
I
gonna
know.
rock the nations with this album. Like,
I don't know. The minute they saw that their artwork for their album cover is probably the minute they all started looking for new jobs because they knew it wasn't going to pan out.
Yeah, thanks, record company.
Now here's a refresh of a band we talked about, but talk about somebody being serious. This guy's got a cape on, for crying out loud.
Fuck yeah.
I mean, he is for sure being serious. I mean, he's taken that wardrobe to a whole new level, and more pictures of him in here. But yeah, the Dragon Slayer comp repress. This thing. Oh, this is I mean, you talk about sword and sorcery with new wave of British heavy metal, and this is the thing is the cover makes it look more cool than it actually is. The music is actually very, very hard 70s hard rock.
Yeah.
It's not what you would think, Marty. This is not Omen Battle Cry.
Right.
No.
This is like 70s hard rock, like Angel. Like 70s hard rock, like Kiss meets Angel. That's what this almost is, but the cover gives it a little more street cred there than it. The music probably deserves.
Angel and Kiss were label mates, weren't they, on Casablanca?
So yeah, they were, and I understand that the label did that purposely, and Angel was supposed to be like the arch nemesis of Kiss.
Huh.
They were supposed to be like they were supposed to duke it out. It was Kiss versus Angel. That's why that's how they built Angel.
Wow. Yeah, Angel was supposed to be the one that the parents would let the kids buy the records by, and kind of
and they were supposed to duke it out in in the alleyway somewhere. Yeah, that's how they labeled him.
Yep.
I like Angel.
All right, Mr. Aaron.
All right, man. So,
digging through his flex box.
Yeah, the flex box. I mean, since the door was just open there, I just kind of have to show this, I think. But yeah, do you have one of these, Eric? I mean, Alan. Sorry.
Is that the Dragon Slayer single?
Yeah.
I do not have it. I've got the comp I've got the one that Ken showed, but I don't have the original single.
Yeah, so I don't know if it came on there and was peeled off, but somehow the sticker that, they sort of famously, they covered it up, the sticker on these labels, because they already got these pressed up by the time they found out about the guys from Orange County. So they made up these stickers and put them over the labels. It's like Dragon Slayer like that, and actually look a lot less cool. So somehow mine ended up on the sleeve, but I've always just left it there.
These didn't come with covers early on?
This just came like this, yeah. Some of them came with sleeves, but this one never had one.
What song?
So that was basically their marketing job right there,
Yeah.
What songs are on that, Aaron?
Satan is Free, I Want Your Life, and that ballad, Broken Hearts.
Satan is Free, I Want Your Life.
Yeah.
Okay, that's on here, and then
that's actually the first song. It's I Want Your Life, and then Satan is Free, and then Broken Hearts on the B side. And this thing plays at 33 because they crammed too much music onto the poor little thing.
That's all on this. But yeah, that's cool. Wow, that's cool. I've never seen an actual copy of that.
Yeah, I'm pretty proud of this one.
That's cool.
I actually, who I actually got this from is when I got this from Phil from Monster Records when I first met him. Actually, when I was living in Austin, and I met Dennis when he and Phil still had Monster Records together. I met Dennis at the record show at the Austin Record Show, and I was asking if they had any with British heavy metal 45s, and he was like, well, I have a couple things in there. I think he had like a Witch Find in the Stars or something like that. That's funny. I'm doing this like it's no big deal, but it's that that's sort of that's not one of the really good ones, like the Dragon Slayer, right? So he was like, yeah, you got to talk with my partner Phil. He lives in San Antonio too, and so I got in touch with Phil and we kind of became friends. But yeah, when I went down there the first time I met him and looked through his shit, I was like, I was trying to play it cool, but I was like, there is no way I'm leaving here without one of these, because he actually had two.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, the other one didn't have the sticker at all. The other one just had this label. So I got the one with the sticker.
So you in the last hour and 20 minutes we've been on the stream, you've lived on 2 different continents in 2 different countries in 3 different states. Were you in the military?
No, actually.
Oh my God! Because you're like, I was in Austin, I was in Germany, I was in, it was like, holy crap. So I thought maybe you were military.
Yeah, we moved to my parents just moved to Germany when I was a kid, which in retrospect is I can't believe the balls to just like take a leap like that. Because it wasn't military. I had to learn German. I mean,
Wow, cool.
it was kind of rough in retrospect, but I didn't seem that way at the time. Now that I have my own kids, though, I'm like, yeah, holy shit.
Yeah.
But then after that, I moved around by myself because I don't know. I guess I got the bug early.
Gotcha.
Alan.
Okay, let's see. Show off 3 of my favorite 7-inch picture sleeves. Because sometimes the art on these is hilariously bad. Some of the times it's very clever. Sometimes it's really cool, but sometimes you just love it. This is a good example of a band that didn't go anywhere and probably didn't have much of an influence on anyone. But the music I like and love this sleeve. It's a band called
I can't believe you have that, you fucker.
And
Jesus Christ.
I love that fucking little alien. He is rocking the fuck out of that guitar, and I love it.
God, that cover is so bad.
All day, every day. The band did not last long. They fell apart real early. Famously, there's a little tear up here on the sleeve, and that's not random because a lot of copies of this came with a little bag, like you would put on your denim jacket.
No
and
shit.
They just jammed the pin right through the corner of the record, and you bought the thing as a package deal. I've got a replica of the pin. I don't think it's the original pin. But yeah, you'll see a lot of picture sleeves have that specific damage on it, and that's why they have it. I don't care about this. This little guy right here is my personal spirit animal. I model my entire life philosophy after that fucking alien playing that rocking guitar.
Hey, let's see the back of that thing too. Can you show us the back cover of that? Because I've never seen it.
Sure, absolutely.
I don't even know who this band is. I've never even heard of this band.
There's no reason you would have. Again,
this is top shelf rarity here. This is like the serious shit.
Yeah, but I didn't wear it tonight, but I had a guy years ago make me a T-shirt with this alien. I still have it.
That is so fucking cool.
There you go, Aaron. But yeah, I went with Crucifixion for the formal wear tonight. But yeah, I still have my Mars T-shirt. I love that alien. Again, there's nothing fancy about it, but your band's name is Mars, and you got this little Martian rocking on a guitar. It's a clever little concept.
And it's Mars with a Z.
Of course,
you're like, is Mars? Mars isn't already a shitty enough name. Let's change. Let's spell it with a Z and make it even shittier. If you spelled it with
an S, it would suck. But when you spell it the wrong way, all of a sudden it's cool.
Yeah. Absolutely. Speaking of, I'm saying this shit, and I would spend a considerable amount of money on that Mars 45. But speaking of, right?
That's a good one.
Deny.
Oh, that's a good one.
But Deny, it's a bad name, so let's spell it wrong and make it worse. It's a great record.
Cool. But that's good music on there. I love those songs.
Oh, totally. And that marketing, though, it looks like, yeah. But how can you not love it? Okay. Anyway, though, I want to see Alan's shit.
Oh no, that's cool.
That was just right in front of me with the band name or the bad names. So
I want to see y'all stuff. Ken has already shown several albums that I've always heard about, but never actually tracked down. So I need to get on that. So another one of my all-time favorite picture sleeves, and this one's bad, but it's so bad it's funny, is Big Daisy.
Dude, I can't believe you have that one either. Jesus Christ.
I would have never bought that record.
If you heard the music, now this is a good example of a new wave of British heavy metal band that is still playing around in the proggy end of like the Rush flavored 70s, heavy music. Big Rush influence here. Good vocalists, good songs. They've gotten the anthology treatment. I think it was High Roller did a really nice collection of their single and demos, and the demo stuff is really good. This was a band that had a lot of talent in it. The music could suck, and I would still have paid a lot of money for this single, because that right there, you got to have some serious heavy metal fucking balls to put that on your record. This isn't a record label decision, because you're putting this shit out yourself. You are deciding that, yeah, we're going to go there, and if you don't like it, fuck you.
Well, it's kind of like that Ace Lane.
Yeah. But this is one on LEJ, which is one of the kind of really famous collectible labels. If you see something on the LEJ label, there's a 90% chance that it's pretty rare and worth a little bit of money. It was kind of tied to a recording studio, and I think it was in London. Might be wrong, but a lot of bands went there to record their stuff. It had pretty good sound and was, I guess, pretty affordable. And then they would just put their stuff out on the studio's label imprint. but they were never printed in big quantities. These were small bands doing stuff just to sell. Have something to sell at the pubs when they would play live. But yeah, I love this sleeve. The story behind this, I always wondered, why the hell would you put this on your sleeve? And one of my collector buddies over in Scotland finally illuminated me on the reason. Apparently in the UK, one of these long-running, just in-country cultural jokes is that when you go to the beach on holiday, you send all your friends these picture postcards of fat women in bathing suits showing what a great time you're having. And it's like bangers and mash. It's one of the cultural jokes that makes no sense to anybody outside of England. And so apparently that's what this was sort of a play on, was the whole picture postcard kishk thing that they do when they're on beach holidays in Great Britain. And they wonder why they lost the fucking empire. What can I say?
Just real quick, this is another LEJ one that's kind of known. This one actually is non LEJ.
Yeah,
I think Fraser in the comments mentioned that band earlier, and I love that band.
Someone mentioned him.
Yep. Yeah,
this was a graffiti, but there were two different pressings of this, and one was on an LEJ. So
yep. They first pressed on LEJ, they got reissued on graffiti. Yeah. And one more, and then we'll go over to Marty. But another sleeve I've always liked, and it's just this is a good example of one where it's simple, but I think it's really well done, is Boll Weevil. This is another one of those bands. They had no impact. Most people have never heard of them, and there's no reason they would have. But this is the only thing they made, and that's a really bitchin' shrunken head.
Yeah, I still can't believe you have that fucking thing either, man. Jesus.
This was just a crazy one. If, for just reference, if anyone is wondering what the hell it sounds like, it sounds a lot like the first Crucifixion single, the Fox backed with Death Sentence.
Which is one of the greatest things. Do you have one of those?
Yeah.
All right. That's one of the greatest things ever, yeah.
It's a killer single, absolutely. There's a reason that it's on the T-shirt, and the reason it's my YouTube channel logo picture and all that.
Yeah, but you know something that kind of sucks about Crucifixion is that the records, the more they cost, the better they are. Like Green Eyes is cool. It's very cool. Take It or Leave It is fucking fantastic. And then the Fox is just like, godly.
Yep, indeed. But so those are three of my favorite picture sleeves from the new wave of British heavy metal. And the records are quite good too. So Marty, back over to you.
Well, I'm pissed off because my favorite album by this band, I can't find it. I don't know what the hell that means. I don't know what the hell happened to it. But Samson is well known for, Paul Samson was in Iron Maiden for a hot minute. And he got, I don't know how that happened, but he got his own band. And Samson is well known for having Bruce Dickinson, who later was taken from Iron Maiden, taken by Iron Maiden to join. So Paul Samson got dicked twice by Iron Maiden. But I would have shown Head On. That's my favorite album by that band. I can't find it. It sounds the most like Iron Maiden. Bruce Dickinson sounds great. Yeah. A lot of really weird homoerotic lyrics, which I don't care, but it's really weird in the context. But so I pulled this. This is live at Reading in '87. It's got all the hits. Take It Like a Man, Vice Versa, Hammerhead. A lot of it must have been when they were touring for Head On. But Samson are a great band. If you're a Maiden fan, you never heard Samson, check out Head On. Very Maiden-esque. There's even a riff.
Hammerhead on the album, isn't it? I can't remember the Iron Maiden one though. Isn't that it, or is it a different one?
Samson must.
Ides of March.
I think it's Ides of March. The intro to Ides of March. Samson wrote for Maiden, but then he put it in a song on the Samson song as well. But Samson are great. Again, sorry I'm not showing anything cult or rare, but
but Marty's totally fucking right. Fucking Head On is really good. It's funny because it's not very Maidenish, but it probably is their most Maidenish.
Yeah.
It's kind of more rock and roll-ish, I think, which I think is why it took me a couple listens. But for what it is, it's fantastic. It's like epic rock and roll almost, I think.
Yep.
And I love it for that.
Shot Tactics album too. I love Shot Tactics.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, see that one, I don't know.
Back to Ken.
All right, we're getting skinnier, but I did pull out some other stuff, a little more lesser-known bands like Touched, Back Alley Vices. Have you guys heard that? That's really good example of new wave of British heavy metal that didn't go anywhere.
That's a better band than it sounds like too. It's a terrible name, but it's a great record.
It's actually very good. It's actually very good. It was just, again, another example of a band that just faded to nothing. Did nothing more. You guys, I'm sure you got, I also have the first one, but I do like Firepower. I showed this one because everybody always shows Chained and Desperate. You know, I actually like Firepower better.
Yes,
I actually
agreed,
like
100%. 100%.
So, I know a lot of people, you know, post Chained and Desperate, you know, that's like, you know, gained its cult thought. But again, Ebony Records.
Yeah. That is my favorite Ebony band, and that is my favorite Chateau record, no doubt.
That's a good. It's a good
I love that cover. The cover on that one's really cool too. Again, it's got that kind of weird futuristic sci-fi thing going on, but it's kind of cool.
Chateau, isn't that Steve Grimmett from Grim Reaper? That's where he came from, isn't it?
He did the vocals on Chained and Desperate only. He kind of stood in as guest vocalist for Chained and Desperate because they didn't have a vocalist, but he does not sing on the other albums.
Correct.
Isn't that a weird thing to do? Who hires a guest singer for your band? What a weird. Seriously, I don't know.
I guess it depends. So a gatefold record.
Mm-hmm. That's such a classic.
End of the World. Yeah. And talk about an album cover that doesn't at all go with the title. End of the World, and like they're watching their village being burned, I guess. So that's the end of the world.
I guess. Yeah.
I don't know. But just another example of, I don't know, they were going out of business or something because I didn't get it. You know?
Yeah, be
like,
sure.
Yeah, I just like, I didn't get it. I mean, this one's much more tough. You know, I mean, the guy in the middle there, you're not going to want to mess with him in a backstreet alley somewhere. I mean,
but you got to savor the fine quality of the painting on that first one, man.
Yeah.
And then, you know, and then they're getting arrested or whatever. You know, it's like this is, you know, that's what I'm talking about. That other cover, I don't know. And then one of my favorite 12-inch EPs, Warrior for Europe Only. This was good. Love the songs on this. Kansas City Suicide Prisoner, song Prisoner. I think that's like the epic song of this EP, Prisoner. But cool stuff.
If you ever go to buy something by Warrior, be warned. There's like 6 different bands in England at the time that use that name. It's really easy to get them mixed up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Warriors the metal.
We're back to the Metal Theologian.
Are we really? Well, shit. I don't really know what I'm doing right now. I'm just pulling shit. Someone actually mentioned Bitch's Sin earlier, so I'll show this real quick. In a way, I think these were like one of the perfect new wave British heavy metal bands because they made a 45 that was really good, and then made an LP that was crap. This is really good.
I love that EP.
Yeah. Have either of y'all, now let's do the collector geekdom for a minute. Have either of y'all ever seen, confirmed for real, a copy of that on yellow vinyl? Because it's been rumored for years, but a lot of people say it doesn't actually exist. The band reportedly doesn't know anything about it, that they were not aware it was on yellow.
Mine's black.
Yeah.
I'm not inclined to trust the bands, just as a general rule.
Yeah.
I found that my memories tend to be kind of faulty when it comes to these things.
Yeah. It has shown up on
what do they know about anything?
Yeah, that's right. It's been reported on yellow vinyl. I would swear I did see a picture of it on yellow vinyl once, but I don't have it documented anywhere. So I could have gotten mixed up with a different record.
Aaron's stealing the show here for me. He's just like, I'm just never gonna fucking trust a band ever with anything they say about any of their fucking releases. Aaron stole the show.
It's not that bad. In my experience, bands tend to remember. They tend to remember numbers up, and
of course,
you know, it's I don't hold it against them. You know, it's not like I'm like this, you know, band guy who knows all these people. But yeah, you know, I would require a little more evidence of its existence than the bands say so.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that makes me think it's possible is Neat. You know, it was on Neat, and Neat did do the Fist LP was on yellow vinyl, so it is possible there was extra yellow wax around that could have been used to press some copies of that single too.
Yeah, but maybe they got pissed off because they went to heavy metal or something.
I had no idea.
I'm just kidding. I don't even know. I have no idea.
I had to ask. The mystery will continue for a while.
Yeah, no, it's worth asking.
Yeah.
But back to Aaron. Back to Aaron.
Are you done, Aaron? Okay. Are you
No,
done?
I was going to show. I can show some more shit.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. The bit you sent is cool, but yeah, then I got us off track with my geeky question.
That's fine.
No, it was a good question because who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. See, it's funny.
Marty's
Like,
probably got the yellow version. He's just not showing it.
Yeah.
While Aaron's pulling some stuff out, Tyler's got a question in the chat about, are any really dark sounding new wave of British heavy metal bands?
Yeah, I'm looking for that. Trying to think. I don't know. I mean, there's Witchfinder General, right?
They have the doomy sound.
That Blade
that's more
Runner's
like
a little
doomy. It's more stylized.
Fair.
The Blade Runner's a little. Yeah, I mean the
it's a
Sage
little
is kind of darker.
It is. It is.
Venom.
Demolition was kind of a heavier band. I don't know if you'd call them dark, but they definitely had a heavier, almost like getting into sort of biker rock territory. Kind of vibe to them.
I kind of think they suck, to tell you the truth.
I do not like the Demolition single. It's one of the big ones I don't care for.
Yeah, I think it's a poorly written song, to tell you the truth.
Agreed. But I'm trying to think of some heavy.
I'm gonna show this one though, just because it came up.
I got that. That rules.
Mm-hmm.
Demon.
Yeah, Demon. And speaking of shit, that's on a punk label. And this is on red vinyl right there.
Yep.
I got that same one. Yep.
Very cool.
Yeah, back in the day, like I don't think anyone is young enough to like really need to be convinced of this. But back in the day, colored vinyl was pretty rare.
It is, yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
I freaked out the first time I got like Sodom's Explosive Sodomy and it was on clear vinyl. I was like, like,
nice.
That's
what is
funny.
this? Is it going to play right?
I'm trying to think what I might have done that with. I think the first time I ever saw something like that, there was a picture disc, and it was a friend of mine saying, "Hey, have you ever seen one of these picture discs before? Look at how cool this is." So like that feeling was preemptively diffused. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Someone asked about Triarchy. I don't have any Triarchy with sleeves. I do have a copy of Save the Con, but I don't have the sleeve. And
is it the
dude here already showed it. Metal Messiah with the robot? No, I have that one too. But again,
now those never came with sleeves, so they're not supposed to have them.
I think there was like I've seen a picture of a sleeve. I don't know if it was like the Salem where there was like a couple, and to all intents and purposes, it doesn't really exist.
There may have been a couple of friendly ones. Now that is fair.
Yeah. Actually, I'm going to pull out the Salem instead of Truffle because I like that Salem one more.
Oh, you have that Salem?
Yeah, actually, someone was asking about these guys before too.
Oh, so I got that Sweet Savage. That's a rocker.
That's a killer.
It's one of the best records ever, man. It really is. That and Eye of the Storm off that comp. That comp is worth it just for that.
I have that. That's a good EP. I should have pulled that out. Sweet Savage. Hell yeah.
Yeah, that band's amazing.
Yeah, totally.
For people watching, by the way, if people are watching and like you guys like really want to get into all this stuff that these guys are showing, like this is quality new wave of British heavy metal. It could be considered cheesy. It could be considered great. You may think it's awful, but if you're looking at new wave to get into new wave of British heavy metal, take these guys' opinion because they are spot on with this stuff. Anyway, sorry.
I appreciate it. I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention that Eric Bauer just said that The Plague by Demons sounds like Praying Mantis channeling John Farnham. That's the best one-line record review I've heard in a while. That's fucking fantastic. Anyway, I agree The Plague sucks. I love the first two albums. And that 45, that's first album era shit. Okay, so yeah, Night of the Demon and I'm fucking spacing the title. The one with the blue cover, The Unexpected Guest. Yeah, I would die on that hill. But The Plague, there are people who have good taste who love that record. I'm not one of them.
I have that 7-inch, and I have Night of the Demon, and that's all I needed by Demon.
Yeah, if you got the first two and that early stuff,
that's all I needed.
Nice.
Do you have this one, Alan?
I do not have that one. No.
Metal Mirror. No,
Metal Mirror.
They have a song on one of the comps. Is it on Heavy Metal Heroes?
Yeah, actually, it's on Heavy Metal Heroes.
Yep. Yeah, that's a tough one to find right there.
I have Heavy Metal Heroes. The comp LP.
Ooh, nice. Yep, they have one song on that comp and that very, very rare.
The German. Is that a German press record? Heavy Metal Heroes.
It's
not that I'm aware of.
I don't think they pressed it in Germany,
Yeah.
but they could.
Jurgen, I
There are
totally,
two
yeah.
pressings of it.
And I guarantee you Alan has that book too.
He has it right there, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't have that.
Yeah, this came out around 99, 2000, or maybe 98. This is a good 20 years.
I didn't even know
out
that
of
book
date.
existed. The New Wave of British Heavy Metal Encyclopedia.
Yeah.
I'm going to get something just for Jurgen real quick. Excuse me 1 second.
And I have the Heavy Metal Encyclopedia.
Yep. Yeah. This
I
is a great.
I didn't even know that existed.
It's a good reference. It is 20 years out of date at this point. So a lot of stuff came to light after this was published. So it's not complete. It has mistakes, but it's a very, very good reference for folks.
There's stuff in there that I probably never heard. So
yeah, but it's literally just a band by band. Each band has kind of a very short blurb.
Can you find that? Can we still find that or no?
The last time I checked, its copies were probably pushing about $100 because it's been out of print for a long time. Yeah, my copy's worn to shit because I tend to write in my books, so I keep like a lot of this has like prices from old eBay auctions, so I could keep track of
Really, it's $100 for a book like that? Are you serious?
The last time I checked, because I looked at getting a replacement copy since this one's getting pretty worn out, and I think I found one like for $80 in Germany. So this was probably
you can get Lords of Chaos for like under $20 now.
Yeah, I've heard that I've heard the author of this was going to have either a revised edition or finally get it repressed somewhere, but I don't know where that stands right now. I'm really bad at keeping up with that kind of news in heavy metal.
Is it just are there pictures of record covers on there and stuff?
Yep. Let's find something.
Oh man, I got it. Oh, look, he's even got notes in it. The True Professor has notes in his book.
Oh yeah, I wrote all over this thing.
That is so funny.
But
it's actually fucking awesome.
Not enough pictures. Too much reading.
Marty said, "Fuck that book."
Here's a picture of the severed head, 7-inch.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, it's a nice.
If I can find it under $100, I'll buy it. I didn't know that existed.
But yeah, that book and this Japanese series of compilations that came out in the 90s were the two big things where a lot of people like myself really got sucked in deep to that rabbit hole between those two things.
Oh, the Holocaust, that EP freaking rules, man. I love that. Nightcomers too.
Yep. But between reading that book and listening to all 8 volumes of this bootleg compilation CD series, that's where you ain't crawling back out of the hole at that point.
Yeah. Alan and I had exactly the same trajectory. I'll just throw that in right now because we talked about this earlier. It's pretty much the same shit. Although, did you tell him about Damascus when I was in the other room?
No, I haven't. All
right, yeah. I love this story. Tell them about Damascus real quick.
Okay, so yeah.
I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but this is good.
No, it's cool. Sometimes folks ask, like, where do you find out about all these weird, obscure bands, and how did you get that stuff? And it's kind of hard. Some of it is you come across a book like that, and dive in deep, or you find these compilations. But the story Aaron's referring to is it's always worth remembering that it's a good idea to also make sure you're listening to your heavy metal staples. I'm bad to get those things out of order sometime. The story Aaron's referring to, I mentioned earlier that I very distinctly remember in fall of is either 92 or 93 at college over at the campus library, and they had like a big record section like on their music floor. I would go in there and dig because they had all kinds of records and you could just listen to anything you wanted to. And that day I dug 2 records out. One of them was this really obscure New Wave of British Heavy Metal EP. I have no idea how the hell they ended up with it in their stacks, but it was by a band called Damascus. They did a 12-inch EP called Open Up Your Eyes. It's really good. They had a great vocalist. At the time, it was considered like one of the rarest 12-inch EPs for New Wave of British Heavy Metal collectors. And so I had probably seen it on like a mail order list, and it just had like a little blurb, like, ultra rare, and it was, several $100s. So I stuck it in the back of my mind, and it's at the fucking campus library. At the same time, pulling that out to listen to while I'm doing my Spanish homework or some shit, I also was like, oh, hey, they've got a copy of South of Heaven. I've never heard a full Slayer album. I should probably listen to that too. it's like I had heard some Slayer songs on compilations here and there, and I knew about the band, but I had never listened to a full Slayer album. So
hold the phone, sports fans. Hold on a minute here. I gotta get this story right.
Yeah,
so you need to tell me it's 1993.
92. Let's call it 92. I think it was 92.
Okay, we're gonna call it now. We're gonna give you that year. We're gonna get 1992. I'm 22. I'm 21, going on 22.
Mm-hmm.
You have never ever heard a full Slayer album?
I had never heard a full Slayer album before that day. I pulled this Damascus EP and Slayer South of Heaven out, and I heard them both. It's like, I was just like, best day ever. I get to hear a full Slayer album, and they actually have this bitching rare new wave of British heavy metal EP I wanted to check out. What more could I ask for on a Thursday afternoon doing Spanish 1 homework?
Okay, so one more question. So the first full-length Slayer album you ever heard was South of Heaven?
Yep. I had heard a lot of songs from the earlier ones, but just on compilations. Yeah, I don't know how, and it makes no sense. I don't know how I missed hearing them. Plenty of friends had Slayer records.
Because you were
I had Slayer on compilations.
Heavy metal encyclopedia.
Yeah, I was looking for Damascus and Slayer. I popped my Slayer cherry on the same day I find Damascus.
We're still working on Alan. I just got him to buy Endless Pain and Pleasure to Kill. He'd never heard those albums either.
Are you kidding me?
Recently,
being serious?
Oh,
I bought those first two. I bought my first two Creator records 2 weeks ago. I'd heard.
That's fucking great. That's great. That's even a better story.
Yeah, I've gotten songs by the bands on compilations and stuff. I mean, I know Creator, but I had never sat down and really paid attention or bought one of their records. The Creator one I can explain because just noise records were always a bitch to find in places I lived. The Slayer I've got no good excuse for.
That's great. That might be one of the best metal stories I've ever heard.
Well, you're up there, Alan. Show a couple records while you're here.
Okay.
And then I got something I got to show Jurgen, assuming he's still around.
Go back to Aaron. Yes. Yeah. Go back to Aaron.
Is he still around?
I don't know.
I hope so.
All right, well, I'll show a record or two. I'll give him a second to show up.
Dreadful Minute says, hey, Alan, you skipped Rain and Blood when it came out?
Rain and Blood I was a little too young to catch Rain and Blood.
Hold on, I got to write this down. What's that? Navi? Or how do you say it?
It's a Nave record, but that's the label. This is a Kraken fantasy reality. They put way too much music on this little thing. It sounds like shit, but it's like this weirdo, like outsider epic metal that came out during the new wave of British heavy metal era. This is 1980. And in spirit, they were like way more prog than a oh, I don't know. I'm not coming up with any good comparisons. But
he's on.
Just a weirdo like outsider prog metal record. So
yep.
All right, so check this shit out. Before the Macmillan book came out, I was trying to find shit like new wave British heavy metal books too, and there was I feel like there was one other one before that, but before that one came out, this was all I could find.
Oh, I don't have that one.
Have you ever seen this before? Published by the Iron Pages.
I've heard of it. I never got it.
New wave of British heavy metal. The glory days.
Because it says Iron Pages.
And this is in German.
Yeah, that's why I never got it. That's right. It is in German.
Oh, it's in German.
That's why I never.
So then there was a volume 2 too.
Scratch it off.
So like.
Aaron, there's a timeline where in the future you went back in time and convinced your parents to move to Germany so you could learn German, so you could buy that fucking book, and I couldn't.
You actually can read it? You can actually read that?
Yeah, I sent away for this actually. So I was I didn't buy this in Germany, but check out that font. I don't know if you can see it. My camera might not be good enough, but the font is just fucking so dated.
Mm.
Yeah. So anyway.
Oops, are they good?
When the Macmillan book came out, that was even more exhaustive than these put together, and it was like, wow. Now there's like, actually, it was the Macmillan book. Actually got me to a place where I was like, okay, I'm really not going to find all this shit, and enough of this stuff sounds kind of like I wouldn't dig it anyway. That's probably just as well. I need to like figure out how far I want to go and like try and stick with that, because with these, like getting everything still kind of seemed maybe attainable,
Yeah.
Because, I mean, up at between Alan and I, we have most of the records in these books. Do you have a Marquis de Sade, Alan?
Yeah.
No shit. Okay, yeah, you showed that actually, didn't you? Okay,
No,
so
I'll pull it if you want to see it.
that's okay. Between the two of us, though, we probably have most of the records in this book. That Mount Macmillan book was like, okay, this is now outside of, you know. So in a way, I owe an extra little debt of gratitude to the Iron Pages books, the Matthias Mader books, because it was like it was more information than I had like available to me before I found them, and it was really enticing. You know, it was really exciting.
So it educated you on stuff to find.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
Well, I'll go while Alan's digging.
Yeah, I didn't mean to send him off like that.
Oh, there we go. He's back.
I was just thinking of like the big ones that neither of us might have. That's one of them.
Oh, I'm sure there's some I don't. There's tons of them I don't have, but yeah,
between the two of us, we probably have most of them covered.
So there's a Marky Decide again. Little band didn't last very long. They did get the anthology treatment a couple of times, so you can check this out. They did some good demo tracks. Yeah, their music's pretty good on this one. They've got kind of a quirkier little sound, but it's good. I like it. It's record is on Expose label. A lot of copies of this you will find without the picture sleeve. Without the picture sleeve, it is a pain but findable. The picture sleeve is a bitch to find, I'll admit. And it also some copies came with this really cheap ass insert. It's literally just printed on almost like cardboard, heavy stock.
That is so weird,
That's
dude.
cool.
First time I saw that, I thought it was fucked up. I couldn't believe that was what it actually looked like. It's like cardstock, isn't it?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Cardstock, but yeah, you don't often see it with the little insert thing. But yeah, that's
you don't often see it at all.
Yeah. There was a period there where some unsleeved copies would turn up on eBay, once every couple of months, and you could get it for $100 or so. But I guess those probably dried up a long time ago.
Yeah, I never remember seeing one for less than $2.
That's just so you can hang it on the wall, man. You hang it on the wall.
But okay, let's see. Next stack. Let's look at a few things. We've referenced dates for new wave of British heavy metal. It's kind of like 79 to 83, 84. A lot of folks would say that like 84 was the last fairly good year for new wave of British heavy metal. But you had some bands that did get product out a year or two late to the party that were still really good, worth mentioning. So
Absolutely.
These are some 85. These are some things from like 85, 86, 87 that I like. They were just a little late to the party.
War Machine, that record rules, man.
Yes, it does. That's my
that
man.
chick is so good.
Yes, this is a female-fronted band, which is pretty unusual in new wave of British heavy metal. She's got a really cool voice, and the songs just have a very cool vibe about them. They're kind of big, atmospheric-sounding songs.
I love it.
If there's one knock against the record, the songs do sound kind of samey after a while.
I love it.
They kind of follow, but it's a cool album. Yeah, it's a later one on Neat Records. It came out in 86. It's the only thing they had a demo or two, but it was the only album they made, I think. This has always been one of my favorites from the later days. Desolation Angels.
That's a really cool record.
It is.
I love that album.
Yeah, it's got some serious Black Sabbath worship on it, but really kind of tuned up. It's more like Dio era Black Sabbath.
I think it's more Dio.
Yep, but it's great. This one, the band had been around earlier. They made a single in 84, but they didn't get their full album out until 86 for whatever reason. It's a weird one because it got pressed in the UK on this little Fame Side label, but it also got pressed in 87 in Brazil, of all places, on the Rock Brigade. So you'll see a lot of copies on the Rock Brigade label instead. Yeah. And yeah, it's just a kick-ass cover, kick-ass name. The back cover is similarly. Now this is one that the paintings. Yeah,
but they have it's kind of like little Tin Lizzy too in there.
A little bit.
Dude, look at how good that is.
They're going all out on this cover.
I've got one word for you, man. Quality.
Yeah, it's cloaked metal, man. They're cloaked. Yep. It's cloaked metal.
Yeah, I do remember I was slightly disappointed when I realized that the band name was taken from a Bad Company song, but it's still a badass song.
You knew that before you knew the Bad Company song?
I owned the record before I knew the Bad Company song.
Well, listen, if you ever see records by a band called Straight Shooter, that's another band that's also named after a Bad Company song, and then you should avoid.
Duly noted. Yeah, I've always.
But lest you be possessed by some demon that says, "Oh, fucking this other band named after a Bad Company song is really good." I mean, it's surprisingly good because of the Bad Company.
Yeah, but yeah, this is. I always love this album. I've owned a couple of different copies of this and traded other ones away.
Do you like that record, Aaron? Do you like Desolation Angels?
Oh yeah, I really like that one a lot. But that's kind of my point because that I probably didn't make it all because I got wrapped up in jokes. I was surprised that record was good because of the Bad Company name. Like that was a big minus. I heard good thing about that record and then good thing after that record. And honestly, the only reason I have it is because I came across one. It wasn't cheap, but for what that record is worth, I knew it was a very good price. And I was like, something, it kind of seems like God wants me to check out this record. So,
yeah. And for anyone interested, the Desolation.
I think I paid like $40.
By Time and Dust redid it a few years ago, so there are copies out there. I mean, you don't have to track down, a 40-year-old copy. They redid it 5 years ago. Another one that came out kind of post New Wave of British Heavy Metal. This is probably my favorite single from the era. If not, it's damn close. Charger. Desperados and Are You Out There? This one. This is now. Here's one, Aaron, where the record dealer hype caused issues back in the day. There's no date on this anywhere. And a lot of dealers always tried to list this as being like 1984 to make sure it was in that, golden age window.
Well, it's a price jump. That's why.
Yeah. But it's, Malk laid out a pretty good case in this book that it was actually came out in 87. And I think that's the date people have finally come to accept. But there was a lot of pushback about that. People did not like the fact that he was proposing it came out, quote unquote, after the new wave of British heavy metal, because then it would cut into the price tag of the record. But this is a fucking barn burner of a record. Desperados is a scorcher, and Are You Out There is just this real fist pumping anthem. The get everybody standing up and singing along and banging their head. Two amazing songs.
What label's that on?
It's a little private dealio, just on Charger. They had one song on Ken. They had one song on a compilation. It may have been one of the Ebony compilations, one of the later ones, or it may have been a different comp. But they do have one compilation appearance somewhere.
I got about 10 things written in my book now that it's going to cost me like $2,000 now.
Yep.
Thanks, guys.
Pretty much.
One now this
German for one of them.
Another one that's another late one.
Learn Germany. Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one came out in 86, and this is one that's developed a good cult following over the years. 20, 30 years ago. Yeah, I got a good reissue kind of anthology thing. But yeah, 20, 30 years ago, nobody knew what the fuck this was. And now it's one that you see cited a whole bunch. But yeah, cool cover, We Stand to Fight, that little dude with the whip on the cover, rocking it out. Very. Now this is heavily Iron Maiden influenced style. Heavy metal have done really, really well.
That's like 84 too, isn't it?
Sorry, what, Aaron?
That's like 84, isn't it?
I think it's 86. I might be wrong.
You paid a whopping $3.50 for it.
I actually trade. The date on this one says 85, so 85.
I'll compromise.
Actually, Ken, it's interesting. I got this. I traded a record dealer a copy of the Witchfinder General Soviet Invasion 12-inch EP to get this.
You got a good fucking deal, dude. Jesus Christ.
He had two copies, and thankfully,
I'd say so.
He's like, take either copy you want. He was like, here, take this copy. He's like, he had a turntable, so I was like, do you mind if I spin it real quick? And when I played it, it skipped like a bitch.
Are you serious?
Like, let me see the other copy. He was pissed. He's like, oh shit, I didn't know it did that. I was like, let me see the other copy. And I put it on and it played fine. I was like, I'll take the copy that doesn't skip this. He's like, yeah, sure, of course. I'm sorry about that. So for a little bit there, I could have gotten stuck with a shitty sounding copy of it. But yeah, this is one of the real high power classics from the era too. But again, a little later, it's outside that golden window of 79 to 83, 84, but it should not go overlooked.
Well, 1990, Alan, 1990 produced Elixir, Clive Burr,
son of Odin.
Yep. So, but the Lethal Potion, 1990.
Oh yeah. Yep. Well, 1990 also produced Slander. Cost Lives, and this is a really good. I mean, it's too late to really be part of that scene, but this is classic new wave of British heavy metal.
Dumb name for a band.
Horrible name for a band. Not going to argue. I avoided it for a little while because the name just seemed too dumb. But
it sounds like a glam band.
It
looks like a glam band too. Yeah. Like actually, if that were a glam record, it would look awesome because it's so inept, you know. For like an actual for what it is.
Yep. But yeah, this one is cool. Now this band within the past couple of years they did a follow-up album on Stormspell, and let's just talk about this one instead. We'll be nice and pretend that second one doesn't exist because it doesn't quite. It has one good song on it, and then it has 9 songs after that. This right here's a really good album.
Either, to tell you the truth, I don't think that one's great either. To tell you the truth,
no, that's fair. That's fair.
Like relative to the hype, maybe it'll hit me one of these days, and I'll be like, "Oh shit, dude, I was wrong." But I just got that one kind of recently. It didn't really blow me away.
Oh, that's fair.
Well, I got one more little chunk here to show. Ken already showed some of it, but I had a hard time choosing between these 3 Raven records.
Oh, yeah.
And really, for me, I mean, this is a quintessential power trio. And other than them falling into, they got signed by Atlantic Records and put out 2 really shitty albums. Pack is Back and what the fuck was the other one? Stay Hard.
You don't like their athletic rock period?
Stay Hard. Stay Hard was fucking awful.
Quintessential power trio. For me, John Gallagher, his vocals are just superb. The way he takes it up into those high register screams and the musicianship on this stuff. I mean, the 2 brothers just work so well off of each other. And as a 3-piece, even live, I mean, John Gallagher's bass work, along with singing at the same time, he holds down that bottom end and adds a little bit of technicality to it. I think probably Wiped Out's my favorite, but I mean, all 3 of these are really good, solid.
Those are good records.
Mm-hmm. These, for as far as new wave British heavy metal, I've owned these forever, and I always kind of forget to listen to Raven. But when I do, it's like, holy fuck! Why don't I listen to this band more? And they've got, I picked up some of their like Life's a Bitch. I picked up every time they show up at a record show cheap. I pick up. I mean, I got these for cheap, $1.99 each at an old record store here in town. But what a great band, and they've kind of stayed doing what they're doing, and they've stood the test of time. And they've stood their ground, which is to be saluted when it comes to this stuff, especially a band like this. They had a little hot minute of commercial success, but it was on some of their worst shit, Yeah, John, that Live at the Inferno, it's a great. I have that.
Yeah, Live at the Inferno is a good record.
That's a great one.
Somebody did mention here, Moon Sorrow said, how about the first Saracen record?
That's a cool album.
That is a good album.
Saints and Fools. Yeah.
I didn't pull that.
I didn't either. Maybe I should have.
I don't have it.
Tokyo Blade. We didn't mention Tokyo Blade.
Love early Tokyo Blade. Some folks don't get them, and I understand, but I really like that early material. When they switched vocalists, they started leaning into almost like a little more of a sleazy, a little glammy sounding.
Weird. Yeah.
But yeah, the first album, Midnight Rendezvous, the Genghis Khan singles they released, that's good stuff. Oh, Buffalo. Nice, Ken. Yes. Battle Torn Heroes.
Yeah, that's a really cool one.
That's a cool one.
White Spirit.
Good.
Yeah.
Very 70s.
That's an unfortunate name.
all these picture sleeves have got some very bootleggable shirts.
That's a good Angel Witch.
Dude, totally.
Loser.
Yeah, here, hold that up for a second. Look how awesome that cover is.
That is a cool one. Yeah.
That's so good.
Yep.
That is good. This is beat to shit. And I got it for what I get it for, like $2.99.
That's awesome, man.
Angel Witch, I've heard the first one. It's really good, but I don't own it. I've never heard the full album.
You know what? So my I didn't get the first one until after I got these records. And the first Angel Witch record I got was Scream and Bleed. This was the first Angel Witch record I got.
I liked it.
I absolutely adore this record. Yeah. With my Iron Maiden records, this would probably be second in command. I mean, I would take this with me on a desert island and listen to this album over and over and over again. This is one of my favorite albums, bar none.
Yeah,
Like,
it's a shame. That album got shit on a lot when it came out because it took the band too long to make it, and they had too many lineup changes, and they just had lost all their momentum by the time that came out. So it really got panned at the time, which was unfortunate because it's got some really good songs on it.
It's got some great fucking songs on it.
Yeah.
And then Frontal Assault.
Yep.
So that was my venture. And then I back cataloged them because this is where I got introduced to them was Screaming and Bleeding Frontal Assault. Yeah. Then I went and got the first one. I got Loser and EP and went from there. But that's how I got introduced to Angel, which was those two records.
The first one I got was Frontal Assault, but it was the US version, which is actually half of Frontal Assault on one side and half of Screaming and Bleeding on the other side. It's got a blue cover instead of the cover you just showed, Ken.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, it's this weird amalgam of the two albums mashed together.
Tyson Dog.
Oh, I haven't heard that name in ages.
It's a good record. Nobody ever talks about Tyson Dog when we talk about New Wave of British heavy metal. Tyson Dog. It's good. I mean, very hard rock-ish. Very hard rock. I mean, they're still labeled as New Wave of British heavy metal, but it's very hard rocky. 70s hard rock, for sure.
Well, you got some more to show. Who do we want to pull the plug on this, or you got more you want to show off?
That's all those records I showed is all I pulled. So I mean,
right on, Alan. You got some more?
I can show a few more. Aaron, is there anything else you want to share?
No, we're good. I mean, I got more things. Here, let me show one. But I mean, I'm conscious of the time too. I don't want to drag on. I got to go check out Grown Man Record Night soon. Anyway.
No, we're good on time. We can go as long as we want, but people are saying no. Keep talking.
Oh, that's nice.
Dragonfly.
It's the original. It's the original, right?
Check out that label, though.
Yep.
They tried to cut some corners.
Yeah. You know who I actually got this from is one of the guys who started High Roller Records. This one, the Metal Mirror one, I got from him too.
Oh, cool. That's a good EP and not an easy, and that's a tough one to find. That's tough.
I love seeing guys that have records they know cost some money, how he's handling the record. He probably doesn't touch his penis in that manner. He's very delicate. I'm surprised he doesn't have the white gloves out.
I don't want to be too much of a patrician about this shit. I mean, some people. I'm speaking only for myself. I don't know about Alan, but when it comes to the shit, one of the ways I get some of the shit is I compromise a lot on condition. So if I'm getting like a record, so it might be the copies I have are a lot of times going to be copies that are probably overlooked by like those kinds of collectors, Yeah. Which doesn't mean I don't have some good shit. I mean, I do know what's in here.
At the store, you're going to buy it no matter what even if the condition isn't amazing. You see it, you buy it.
The condition is almost never a deal breaker for me. The condition has to be, okay, I saw a record. I think it was like a first Carcass record, like an original pressing or something like that. Like something that was more cool than I actually cared about it myself. I was actually, speaking of Grown Man Record Night, when I was up in Greensboro for Grown Man Record Night one time, there was a copy that was like, it was like literally stuck to the record next to it, like in the bin, and I pulled it out and it was all fucked up, and like it was cheap for that record, but that's why it was pretty obvious. And I was like, something, no. But it really kind of takes something at that level for me to balk at it, especially because my record player is super forgiving. Like if you have like when Alan was talking about that copy of the Virtue record that skipped before, I was thinking, I bet it wouldn't skip on my turntable. Because I have some like that where they probably wouldn't even play on yours, but on mine they play okay. So
you guys want to know a story about New Wave of British heavy metal for me back?
Yeah.
So I was married in 1999. It was before I was married. I was with a friend. We were at a record store in Chicago.
Which one?
In my hands, I think it was called Hi-Fi Records.
Oh, okay. Don't know it.
On the north side. And in my hands, literally holding them. Didn't know what they were, so I put them back. I had an original copy of Ethel the Frog.
Yeah.
And Parallax White Lightning.
Oh, nice.
Well, do you want me to make you feel a little bit better?
And I did not know what they were, so I did not buy them.
Hey, you want me to make you feel a little bit better? I can help. that Ethel the Frog record, it sucks. I just pulled this fucking thing out like a week ago because I was talking with someone in the fucking comments about a video about bad covers. I think it was because of Riot because they did Born to Be Wild. And Eleanor, and that fucking record kind of takes the cake for bad cover selection plus placement, because to not only pick Eleanor Rigby but to put it right at the beginning of your record is kind of a kiss of death for me. But I pulled that record out a week ago, like in spite of myself, and I guess remembering having not been really crazy about it. And I put it on, and that the record is a fucking turd. So you fucked up passing on that Parallax. I can't help you with that one. But the Ethel the Frog, you're really not missing anything.
I'm okay there. Record. All right. Well, I'll take your word for it. But yeah, the Parallax.
The Parallax record, ooh, that's a great one, man. Yeah.
Is that an original copy?
Yep. Green wax.
That could buy your house.
I don't know. It came with 2 different covers. I don't have the other cover version. Some covers just have like a little dragon-y thing, but this is the one you usually see. There is a different cover version with a little dragon-like logo on it.
That record fucking rocks, man.
Yeah, this is one that's on the Lars. This is one that goes back to that Lars compilation. This was one of the rarer things he stuck on it. That one of the tracks from it was included there.
I was going to say
that's another small pile of money that Lars. I can blame Lars for me no longer having that money.
That was one of the very first. I maybe should have pulled that one out instead of the Hollow Ground, actually, because I went for that Parallax first. That was like one of the first things I bought on eBay.
It was I went after that one early and got it from a record dealer. Almost 30 years ago. You're holding one of my favorites.
And this
one of my favorites. That's top shelf shit.
No, I have no, not Mendes. Getty's something.
Getty's Axe, maybe. Yeah.
I have a Getty's Axe. That's why I have a Getty's Axe record.
I like those records too.
That Minnie's Prey single is as good as anything you will listen to from the new wave of British heavy metal.
You know, I always felt it had a really commercial sound to it. Like in a way that I actually found off-putting. Yeah, I've really come around on it. I mean, obviously, enough to like get a copy of it, but like for a while, I was like, man.
Yeah, no, it's not. You're right. It's not as heavy as a lot of other bands where it has that. It could have gotten like some FM radio play without too much trouble back then.
Yeah,
absolutely. But yeah, I actually random side thing on Mindy's Prey. I interviewed the vocalist G. Seymour years ago for an issue of Steel for an Age. One of the Greek fanzines. Really nice guy. He had a long career as like a producer, studio worker, and was super nice. We talked a lot about the band, and they toured with Thin Lizzy and stuff. Really nice. It was around the time they did this anthology collection, and they were nice. Actually, apparently, I don't have it, but apparently in the Digipack, he took some excerpts and quotes from my little interview and stuck them in the packaging on it.
Man.
Which was kind of cool of them. Yeah, excellent single, excellent band.
I guess before we pull the plug on this is kind of a curveball that I didn't really mention. That let's talk about in closing. Let's talk about the impact of new wave of British heavy metal on the scene at large. Bands that would end up being legacy band in their own right. I mean, off the top of my head, this one pops to mind. This is probably one of my favorite Slayer albums. This and Rain and Blood are my 2 favorites. This sounds like no other Slayer album because there is a deep new wave of British heavy metal spirit running through the songwriting on this. This is the way the riffs are structured. There is a lot more class and character in these riffs, and they ended up going for the dive bomb solos and the faster speeds. Slayer, they're great. Their first 5 albums are classics, but this for me is a definite new wave of British heavy metal. Another classic.
Yep,
very much new wave of British heavy metal inspired. This one is an obvious choice.
Oh yeah,
very much. And
dude, when I first heard Diamond Head, and I was the guy who would get blind by shit. This was been probably 87 or 88. I sent away for a copy of a comp called Am I Evil? And when I was playing that, the first time I heard the song Sucking My Love, I was like, I can't believe they lifted the whole fucking song from this song. It just blew my mind. I was like 15 and I was like, my God, I can't believe I'm hearing this, you know, because Metallica was like gods to me, right? And like this fucking song is like every riff, you know.
Blue Throw nailed it as well. Feel the Fire. Alan reminded me of this one, talking to him earlier today. You know, this Overkill album, this is my favorite Overkill album. I like a lot of Overkill albums, but this one is my favorite. And again, this sounds a lot different than a lot of Overkill albums. I mean, the album immediately following, they got more thrash. Oops, I forgot to. There we go. They got a lot more traditional thrash. But, you know, all these old bands that went on to very long, amazing careers were very heavily influenced by New Wave of British Heavy Metal. Can you guys think of any others off the top of your head?
Hey, Marty, what song would you present or would you pick off that Overkill as really exemplifying that? Because I hear it in the other three, but I don't know that I've heard it in that one.
It's
so I'm
not
gonna pull it out
to
again.
the core.
I would say the first song, Raise the Dead. I mean,
All right, I'm going to listen to it again.
I love this album.
I really like that record, but I came to Overkill late. I came to Overkill within the last 10 years, which is weird because I should have loved them.
Rough and tumble street heavy metal with a little bit of thrash spirit starting, but I mean, these guys were. I wish they would have lived in this sound a little bit longer, to be honest.
I do too. Yeah.
Do you have the EP?
To the Core was their epic.
EP, yeah, on vinyl.
They drew on that first Overkill. You know, it's another one that owes a note to the punk scene. Dead Boys and stuff there's definitely even obviously they covered Sonic Reducer, but it really has that loud and snotty kind of vibe from from New York punk mixed into it a little bit too.
I agree. Bit Bop Boom, definitely. That's a classic. Do you guys think of any others off the top of your head? I mean, I know I'm putting you on the spot, but
the heaviest of death metal bands today take influence from these bands. They take inspiration. Music tames the savage beast.
Sure.
So, I mean, even the heaviest of death metal bands today, even though they may not know it, take influence. Sure. They take influence from these bands, whether they were pub bands and did one song on a comp, did one EP, or had a career like Iron Maiden. I think there are just a lot of bands that need to give thanks to the bands that came out of the hard rock scene and created a movement known as the new wave of British heavy metal.
Yeah, you've got this entire new wave of traditional heavy metal, which is basically paying homage to that, up front in center, no qualms about it, from the sound to the cover art that they're using. It's all very much, 1984 and earlier is what their whole, scene is based on.
Yep. No one mentioned Tank.
Someone should
actually
bad on us. Someone should have mentioned.
No, I would put Tank actually in as one of those bands that doesn't really sound like a new wave British heavy metal band, along with like Venom and Witchfinder General, like we were talking about earlier. They were chronologically.
I agree with Aaron on that.
Yeah, they don't sound like those bands.
They're more thrashy to me.
Really?
Right?
So I put them very much in that Venom, Warfare, Motorhead, style. Yeah, they're
but I don't think of that as new wave British heavy metal.
Yeah, I don't think
that's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
When I think of that sound, I'm thinking of something like Ground Attack.
Mm-hmm.
Heavy Metal Maniac's a great record. That's
that.
not new wave of British heavy metal.
It is a great record.
You may be asking if it's one
it's
another
the best exciting record.
inspired though, pretty heavy.
Long Live the Loud. Long Live the Loud might be.
I'm a Violence and Force man myself.
Yeah, no one mentioned Vardis. I don't own any Vardis. I've heard Vardis, but I don't own
Vardis is more speed metal.
Vardis also has. I like a lot of Vardis songs.
I'd say Vardis is more rock and roll. Actually,
they have a
kind of more boogie
element.
I think they're faster than your typical new wave of British heavy metal.
The boogie element is where I just kind of get tired of Vardis pretty fast with that the boogie element they work in. But they do have a lot of good songs. The 100 Miles Per Hour live album is really fun. I never want to listen to it. Yeah, I just don't want to listen to it very often. But when I do, it's good.
Eric mentioned Adam Kraft, who I have not heard, but they're known also
Queen of Death
for having Tony Dolan, who went on to be the Demolition Man in Venom and Venom Inc.
Mm. Yep. Avengers, a really good one there. That's another Brian Ross project.
Oh, is that Pray for Steel? Avenger?
No, That's the German Avenger that turned into Rage. This is the one, Blood Sports and Killer Elite.
Oh, Blood Sports! Hell yeah,
Records.
I got that. Yeah, that's awesome too.
That's a great cover too, with where he's wearing the fucking football helmet and holding.
Yeah,
a
and it's
chainsaw.
like all red. The cover
and it's all red. Yeah,
red. You can't
it's
see
like a
anything.
pink. It's like a weird pink red cover. Yeah,
Yeah, it's awful.
But the music is good. Yeah, yeah.
Music's great.
Well, there you have it, everyone. I think we, obviously we didn't nail every band out there, but there's a lot.
I actually love the fact that in the chat people are naming all these other bands, saying nobody mentioned this band. They've covered like 10 good ones already, like Cloven Hoof. I mean, they're great, but we didn't even mention it because we didn't need to. We can still cover it. That's how much there is.
Yep.
It's that we could talk about that next time. So it's that deepest subject.
Absolutely. And I just want to thank everybody for coming out. Hey, we hit 61 people tonight. That's probably a record.
Awesome.
So in a 50 hour, we're 56 now. Thank you all for coming by and watching.
Hope folks
Shit,
enjoy.
my drink's empty.
But we'll be back next week. Mr. Eric Bauer will be joining us, and we will be discussing non-metal albums that metalheads will probably be into. So that'll be.
Oh, wait a minute. Eric Bauer, everything he says is a lie. When Eric's on, don't believe anything he says. It's all lies.
And then the week after that, we've got Mike Seatown coming back. We're going to discuss the new Halloween record, which dropped today, and I love it. But, y'all probably knew that was going to come out of my mouth. But thank you all for enjoying these shows with us. It's been a lot of fun. Ken, Aaron, thank you for joining me, Alan.
Big thanks to Ken and
Thanks
Aaron
for having me.
coming and talking about this. When Marty and I talked about wanting to do a new wave of British heavy metal stream, I knew right away the two people that we needed to contact for this. But Cloudy Milder and Metal Mickey were both busy tonight, so we talked to you guys.
We got John Bitbot Boom too. He would have been a good one to throw into this mix too, for sure.
Yep, but no, it's been a blast.
It's been a good time, and thank you one and all. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, fellas.
All right, take care. Thanks again.
Cheers.
Everybody take care, man.